Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Mukherjee garu. Our registrar today, he is busy with some other schedule. Professor T. Ashok, Sir, EC member Dr. B. Jagan Mohan Reddy, and the today's eminent persons of the day, Dr. B. Sachinarayana from University of Malaysia, Terengganu, and Dr. K. Sunanda, Ruhuna University, Sri Lanka, and senior members Sasibhushan Rao sir and Satyaji Rao sir. Welcome, sir. I did not see you earlier, and thank you for associating with us. And many members from Sri Lanka who have joined this webinar, and my fellow colleagues from the Department of Life Sciences and the faculty members of University College of Science and Technology, and the participants from throughout India, and the teachers from the affiliated colleges and student friends. A very good morning to one and all. And I welcome you all to this webinar series, that is Coastal Frontiers, Mangroves. This is an initiative that is being taken up as a part of creating opportunities for capacity building and building up international networking, that is all because of the support and the encouragement and motivation that has been given by our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, that we are taking this opportunity to contribute some bit to the university from our side. This is the first time that this type of opportunity has been given to me, and I'm happy and thankful to our Vice Chancellor, sir, for letting me take this forward. And as you are all aware that we have initiated this program with an online meeting with our expert, Dr. P. Sachinarayana, who has promised us to take this collaboration in a positive and beneficial way to the university, especially the students. And as before the start initiating of this program, you members were discussing about the deeds of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, but I'll put it in a proper manner so that it will be of use to the participants. Sir, may I, sir? So since the time our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor M. Jagannath Rao sir, has assumed office from January 2020, the university has been making strides in academics with multidimensional facets, and with all the initiatives. Some were old and some are new. The old ones were given polish and they were brought out, and many new initiatives were introduced. And this is especially the area is the inclusion of the students, the visibility of the university to the students themselves. That is the best initiative I can say, because the students know what is happening in their university, and that has been done through the publication of the news article every week that comes out in the form of which is called as Nannayavani. So every student can say that he knows about the university that he is studying. So this is the first initiative that sir has taken up to make the students benefit to know what the university is like. And with his all, not only to the students, sir has been taking all the initiatives for the benefit of the faculty members and also the stakeholders of the university, like all our affiliated colleges are also being benefited by different programs that he has been taking up. Like the university has introduced the LMS system, which is what you say, useful to the affiliated colleges primarily, and then we are looking at the PG programs also. And with his persistent and relentless efforts, the university has been able to achieve the ISO 9001-2015, and the AICTE approval also has been bagged recently. This I should tell why I am telling it so specifically is because it has been quite 5 to 6 years since we've been going for AICTE recognition. But this was possible only because of his relentless and persistent efforts that he has put forward. I think our university should be grateful for him, in making this university visible at that level also. And the other things is he was instrumental for the university to grab or bag the Sports Authority of India funding to the tune of 8.3 crores through the Khelo India program. And now I think the next visibility will be in the sports arena, which will definitely help the university reach much more heights. And apart from this, these are the major things that the university has been going through under the leadership of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. But more specifically, I should be pointing out to the lockdown period when everything came to a standstill and when everything was halted. But the university never kept quiet because of the initiatives that our Honorable Vice Chancellor has taken. And he has, with all his support and encouragement, not only the faculty members, the different around 100 webinars have been conducted till date. And I'm proud to say that this is the highest number in the state of AP. So you can understand that it is not just conducting a webinar, it is with the involvement of all the students, because like creating awareness and giving out the subject area of expertise and focus, so that they are utilizing their time without any wasting it, just and not getting into the deviation part. And even for such activity, they're feeling out of place or something. It was sir who has initiated the counseling center for the students from the psychology department also. So this has been, and it has been of use so much that it went out into the community. Even the public are taking the counseling from that particular center. So this is, and it doesn't stop here. Many COVID related activities have been taken up through the NSS programs, and sir has been kind enough to do the same even for our own employees here, non-teaching employees especially, just not leaving them just because of COVID break. So that is the human touch that we can see within him. And as a teacher, I have seen him during the superannuation from the Department of Geology. I think I can never see that again. So, and I'm happy that I could witness that event also. They have given the title, the phenomenal 36 years of phenomenal service. So still it continues. And the other day, there was a program in the Department of Chemistry. I just wanted to tell how great a teacher he is. Department of Chemistry, one person by Dr. Appal Raju has come in from ONGC to create awareness and how to crack the NET and GATE examination. So when sir has entered, Appal Raju has touched his feet. Then again, when he was asked to give his message, he got up and again he touched his feet. I had a doubt in my mind, why is he doing? But when he spoke, why he has done that, then I thought, yes, it should be done. Because that is how a teacher and a student relation should be. Like, he's not a geology student, in fact, not a direct student. He's from the Department of Chemistry, and the reverence he has. So teacher is not only limited to a subject, but when you are giving a helping hand or when you are inspiring somebody to do something, we can look upon them as teachers. So I think I witnessing that event has really, like, it has given the conclusion. Yes, sir is a true and a great teacher. So, and we are fortunate that the university is being led by a true academician. That is why we are able to see the light of the day in academics also, apart from other activities. And I think I should be going ahead. So as a part of all these activities that are being taken up in the university, and now looking at the global arena, sir being utilizing his experience as a Dean International Student Affairs at Andhra University, he has brought in that initiative also into the Adikavi Nannaya University, and we have launched the International Students Office, and he, through this what you say, complementing those efforts, because of his permission, I could take up this program, that is the capacity building and the international networking opportunities. I have been looking forward, and it was kind of Dr. Satyam to come forward to help us in coordinating and cooperating with us to take this initiative ahead. Thank you very much, sir. And in between this, Dr. Satyaji Rao also has contacted me, and he said he would like to contribute in a similar manner. And this also has been possible only because of our Vice Chancellor, sir. So thank you, sir. And I thank our Vice Chancellor, sir, also for giving me this opportunity to contribute and do a bit to the university from my side. And today, this is the first step of action for this collaborative activity that we are going ahead. And this is the beginning of with the beginning of this webinar series, that is the Coastal Frontiers, Mangroves, which will continue for the years to come, and which is initiated with the, though it is from the Department of Zoology and Aquaculture, it will be going into the interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary across all the colleges, university colleges, across all the departments also, looking into different focus areas. So on this note, I welcome you all, and I thank all of you for participating in this webinar series, and look forward to working with you for the benefit of the students and for the benefit of the university also. Thank you very much, sir. And now I request Dr. Padmavati to introduce our Vice Chancellor, sir, to the...
Dr. Ramaneshwari?
Sir.
Why don't we go ahead, because it is much taking time. You have already given a very good introduction about me. Why you want to introduce? So it's not necessary.
Yes,
it's not
okay,
necessary. Let us know more about our resource persons than ourselves. Okay.
Yes.
Let us go ahead. Let us go ahead.
Yes, sir. No, sir, we should be telling about ourselves, and especially leaders like you, because only with the leader like you, they can come forward to coordinate and support us in taking any initiatives ahead.
Maybe brief. You can briefly ask for Dr. Padmavati to be brief.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Padmavati, madam. Yes, kindly go ahead.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. Okay. Honorable Vice Chancellor Mukherjee Jagannath sir, respected Registrar sir, respected Principal ma'am, and all eminent personalities from various institutes and universities, respected all other deans, principals, senior faculty members, and my dear colleagues, dear students, and all other past participants. Welcome you all. Good morning to one and all, and welcome you all for this Coastal Frontiers Mangroves So it's my immense pleasure to introduce Professor Mukherjee Jagannath sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor to Adikavi Nannaya University, who achieved his educational qualifications both nationally and internationally. He got his master's degree in applied geology from Andhra University, Visakhapatnam, as well as in engineering from University of Alaska, USA. He was awarded PhD from Andhra University in 1985 and got selected in UPSC geologist examinations all India 11th rank in 1983 and also UPSC Civil Services Group B service exams in 1985. Although he got selected, he did not opt for civil services because of his passion towards teaching. He started his professional career as assistant professor in the Department of Geology, later promoted to professor and head of the department. He is a great academician and researcher, serving both hand in hand continuously for more than a period of 33 years. As an academician, he achieved many awards and honors, including Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan Award, Best Academician Award of the Year by Andhra University. Besides his passion towards teaching, his thirst on research led him to publish nearly 150 research articles in peer-reviewed national and international journals, and his areas of interest are coastal geology, deltas, mineral resources and processing, petroleum exploration, coal environmental geology, computer applications, groundwater, and remote sensing, etc. He was also awarded Scientist of the Year 2017 by National Environmental Science Academy, New Delhi. So for 33 scholars got awarded PhDs under his guidance, not only in geology, but also in other subjects and allied physics. He successfully completed 8 projects funded by various government funding bodies such as DST, UGC, CSIR, APMDC, ISRO, and ONGC, etc. He has got strong collaborations with various organizations from USA, Canada, and Australia. He also got huge consultancy projects from ONGC, like studies on Holocene evolution of Mahanadi Delta, studies on land subsidence due to hydrocarbon exploration and exploitation of at KG-PG basin, AP using remote sensing and field studies. He is a member of various professional scientific bodies and also filed a patent entitled An Inventive Model, which explains the genesis of Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. He also attained vast experience in administration by holding many administrative positions like head of the Department of Geology, then Dean for PG and Professional Examinations, Chairman for Board of Studies from Department of Geosciences, Director for International Student Affairs, and Director for Delta Studies Institute, and member of various Board of Selection Committees as NAC assessor. Currently, he is holding prestigious position as Vice Chancellor to Adikavi Nannaya University. As already Madam mentioned, during his present leadership, he initiated many programs and activities like Vinamaya Lecture Club, students chapters, etc., and also making us to achieve credentials to our university with ISO 9001-2015 AICTE recognition, launching LMS, and indeed during COVID pandemic period, encouraged us to conduct more than 100 webinars and also recently launched International Students Affairs. So restlessly striving with a vision to see Adikavi Nannaya University should be the international institute of choice for education, research, training, and consultancy. With this introduction, I welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Mukherjee Jagannath sir, to address the participants. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Padmavati, for your kind words of introduction. And I'm extremely happy to have this opportunity to welcome you all for this very important international program, Coastal Frontiers and Mangroves, which is being conducted to initiate the collaboration with the international universities from the Malaysia through Dr. Behra Satyanarayana Garu, and also from Sri Lanka, we have Dr. Sunanda, and all the faculty colleagues from these universities. So first of all, I take this opportunity to welcome these two experts, especially Dr. B. Satyanarayana from the Institute of Oceanography and Environment, University of Malaysia, and Dr. Sunanda, Senior Lecturer, Department of Botany, University of Ruhana, Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, sir. And we are very, very happy that I, first of all, I always see you a smiling face. That indicates your very positive attitude. And that is what an academician is always needs. There are some academicians who are very negative minded. I really hate them. They say nothing, no, it is not possible, that is not possible. There are a lot of red tapeism and all, collaboration won't work. Those kind of things I don't allow. For everything, there may be some limitations or some drawbacks, but you have to use all the possible advantage and go ahead. Go ahead with that. So that is what I always believe. I always believe in that. And so Dr. Ramneshwari and others are telling, okay, Vice Chancellor is doing this and that. I always feel one thing. What is required as a Vice Chancellor, only I'm doing. I'm not doing anything extra. Whatever is required from a Vice Chancellor, that's what I'm doing as an academician, because that is why this position is given to me. If I am doing these things, means that is what is required only. I don't say that I am very great and I'm doing extra things, but still I miss doing many things because of the COVID pandemic. Otherwise, I could have gone to UGC and gone to DST and gone to many other places, sitting with them and get funding. But unfortunately, because of COVID, we are unable to do all these things which we wanted to do. But still, in the pandemic also, we don't want to just sit like that and give our students nothing instruction. So we want to give instruction through the other platforms, like online platforms, by conducting online classes, by keeping them busy. And if there are any possibility if there are any people who are suffering any depressive things and all, even we have started a counseling center and a number of webinars. So our main interest is to keep them busy, even during this pandemic, and academically, they should be learning. They should not be left alone. So that is what is the concept. So we have done that, and we are happy again that we have a number of experts here. I congratulate Dr. Ramneswari for doing good job in this direction, and also we have other colleagues like and friends and experts, Dr. Sashibhushan Rao Garu and Dr. Satyaji Rao. He happen to be my best friend. He's working from the National Institute of Hydrology of Kakinada, and we had been in association with him earlier also. He's a great researcher and as a known scientist in India. And I'm happy that he's also with us today. And Dr. Jagan Mohan Reddy is EC member. And we have other colleagues of Nanaya University. So when you talk about these mangroves, mangroves are always a great subject to discuss. It is a kind of, we always feel that it is a special ecosystem, not only for biology and botany or zoology, but it is a kind of interest for geologists as well. We call it is an organic storehouse. So when these rivers meet the sea, these very specialized flora will emerge, and they have these breathing roots and different species, and they will die and deposit a lot of organic matter. Maybe this is the storehouse of organic matter. So we used to study, when I was the Delta Studies Institute director, we used to give training to ONGC people, because deltas, the modern deltas, are actually, if you study the modern deltas and the processes of modern deltas. So what is the sedimentation? What kind of sediments? How these organic matter is deposited in these sediments? Kind of we want to understand. We used to conduct training programs on deltas to ONGC experts. The main emphasis was to understand how the present day processes are occurring in deltaic systems. So when you understand the present day deltaic systems, you will be able to understand the ancient deltas, which were are the storehouse of these oil and gas resources. So in that way, we used to study these deltas extensively in the institute called Delta Studies Institute, which is established with the help of ONGC. So I'm extremely happy that these mangroves now, which are considered as the most important ecosystems, they need to be conserved. They need to be protected. Whether a mangrove system is there in India or in some other country, it doesn't mean we are the owners. So we are only the custodians. We need to take care of these things for the next generation. Not only these would belong to us, but they belong to the entire world. So these are such ecosystems need to be conserved. So all the international agencies working towards such conservation efforts and these wetlands, we call wetlands, and brackish water ecosystems need to be protected. There are a number of opportunities are there, and this kind of initiative will definitely attract the international agencies. So what I suggest is we have a good beginning, and people like you should go ahead with organize some of the field programs as well with your scientists. You come down to our university, conduct seminars, workshops, and also invite some of our faculty to your university, and let us start working with these kind of ecosystems. It is two things: a research project and training programs and academic programs. So we need to think about these things. If there is a possibility, we can also initiate a joint PhD program, whereby students can register for this joint PhD program, where they will be working with you, and they do conduct the field work. We'll extend all necessary help to conduct field work because we are near to these mangroves. So we help them. And whereas you have a lot of sophisticated equipment, so you can help them in the laboratory experimentation, laboratory analysis, and laboratory work. So under joint guidance, students can submit PhDs. So there are many excellent students in this country, as you know, because you are one of them. You could achieve that. You have gone to that international level. The only thing is the right opportunity. When the right opportunity is given to our students, definitely they'll excel. They're no less than any international student or international scholar. Only thing is we need to give them such an opportunity. So we need to think about the training programs. We need to think about the joint research programs. We need to think about the exchange programs. So all these things you keep in mind and start working on this collaboration. How to go forward. So whatever help is needed from my side, as you know, that I am very positive. We are ready to extend all necessary help to you. Only thing is, you need to see how our university can be fit in this international effort of collaboration, which should be a win-win situation. It should be beneficial for all the stakeholders of this collaboration. So that is what we are thinking about, and we look forward. I'm extremely happy that today I wanted to announce that the students will be working with you for their projects now. That is a very first initiative we are taking up. All the students will be working under your guidance on these mangroves ecosystems. So whether it is a botany or zoology, because the mangroves are such a system, many fields are involved. The interdisciplinary work, like you have botanists can work, and zoology experts can work, and the zoology scholars can work, and the geology fellows can work, remote sensing and GIS fellows can work, because mangroves need to be protected. Mangroves need to be conserved. So we need to take these mangroves and conserve them, and we should not feel that we are the owners. We are only custodians, and see these ecosystems are carefully, safely, or transferred to the next generation. Now that is very important. Unfortunately, some kind of destruction has been going on at some places. Maybe we need to see what kind of percentage of mangroves are lost. Is there any way we can rebuild this kind of ecosystem and conserve, at least stop further destruction. So using this kind of research and recommendations, even we talk to the government, we can give all the necessary recommendations because you are the experts and your words should prevail. And definitely this should be an international effort to conserve these mangroves and get into and understand these beautiful ecosystems, because many things still need to be understood from these ecosystems. So a lot of research need to be done and how these things can be and will be preserved in future. And once again, I think, as you said, these are called carbon sinks. So even they are environmentally very important. They take all the unnecessary and toxic carbon or carbon dioxide and give us a good atmosphere, environment, and oxygen. So let us look forward to work with, and I congratulate Dr. Behra Satyanarayana Garu and Dr. Sunanda and all other experts and their team members for coming forward to work with us. It's a great opportunity for the Adikavi Nanna University to have this international program. Thank you very much, Behra Satyanarayana Garu.
I'm blessed. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think with your support and guidance, we will move ahead quickly and fulfill all what we want to do within a year or so. Thank you so much, sir, for that message. And students,
Madam, year is so long. It's so it is not.
And we are going to initiate, but whatever, like the rest of follow-up programs also should be initiated within this year.
1 year means after 1 year you will have the fruits, but you have
Yes,
to
sir.
start now itself.
Yes.
Maybe within 2 months.
Many of our students are here, sir, out of the interest only, they have joined this program, and they are going to take up this program also, sir, from the first year MSc zoology students and aquaculture students. So thank you, sir, for your message. And now it is time to listen to our speakers of the day, Dr. B. Satyanarayana and Dr. K. Sunanda. I request Dr. Padmavati to introduce the speaker, Dr. B. Satyanarayana from University of Malaysia. And we will be listening to him. Please, Padmavati, madam.
Yes, ma'am. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. B. Satyanarayana, sir, Associate Professor from Institute of Oceanography and Environment, INOS, Higher Institution Center for Excellence and in Marine Sciences, Malaysia. He was awarded PhD from Andhra University on ecobiology and remote sensing based study of Coringa mangroves in the Godavari Delta, east coast of India. He did his MSc from geology with aquaculture specialization from Acharya Nagarjuna University. He started his research career as postdoctoral researcher in China, Belgium, and later settled as associate professor in Institute of Oceanography and Environment, Terengganu University, Malaysia. His field of interest is marine biology, especially on mangrove ecology and remote sensing and GIS. He is a professional member of various bodies such as STEP and CEL, Mangrove Specialist Group, Society of Wetland Scientists, Mangrove Society of India, Royal Academy of Overseas Sciences for Natural and Medical Sciences. He has vast experience in teaching field for a period of 11 years and various national and international collaborations with Sri Lanka, China, Belgium, Singapore at individual as well as institutional level. He handled various projects as principal investigator and co-principal investigator, funded with several research grants and funds. He received many awards and recognitions like Best Program Award, Best International Staff Award, Best Paper Award. He has undergone many technical trainings on remote sensing technology, ecosystem modeling for environmental management, effects of shipbreaking on marine life at Alang, etc. Under his supervision, 7 PhD scholars were awarded doctoral degree, guided many graduate and postgraduate students, offered trainings and internships to several students. He published more than 50 research articles in peer-reviewed high-impact journals on the whole having high I index and H index, published full-length papers in several conferences proceedings, wrote and edited few books and chapters, and has got free gene bank deposits. He participated in various seminars and conferences, gave several guest lectures. Besides these, he held many administrative positions such as Chief Secretariat for the MMM3, that is Meeting on Mangrove Ecology, Function and Management, as a facilitator, chief coordinator, and coordinator, etc., as well as evaluator and examiner for various sessional chairs. With this brief introduction, I invite Dr. B. Satyanarayana Sir, international expert, to deliver his presentation on Treasure the Mangroves for Human and Environmental Safety, a nature-based solution for climate change. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And let me privilege to part of this program. Before I begin, I would like to say, Professor Jagannath Rao sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, for giving me this opportunity to associate with Adikavi Nannaya University faculty members and with the university itself. As I don't see myself as away from university. I'm very close to the university. I'm part of your team, and thank you so much, sir, for keeping your motivational words and your encouraging messages every day. Every day, I would say, every day. That's keep me rolling on, and definitely my dream comes true, and we'll be doing all your targets. We will be able to reach them less than a year, I would say. We can initiate. So also, thank you so much for Principal Madam Ramaneshwari garu for being put me in the loop of Adikavi Nannaya University. I'm so happy for this developments. As Sir said, the mangrove ecosystems are actually organic matter storehouses. That's how a geologist can think about it. As a biologist, we think about as a living laboratory. It's a living laboratory. So you can do plenty of things. There is no limitation to the botanist or geologist. So any field person, whoever interested in working with that particular ecosystem, can be part of this mangrove for sure. So thank you so much for the valuable and appreciation and given introduction about me. And I would like to share my slides today. My talk is let me share the screen first. Can you see all my screen? Can you all see my screen? Yeah.
Yes, sir. I can see
great. Thank you so much. And yes, today I'm so happy and lucky to be part of your team to say a few words about the treasure, the mangrove ecosystem, human and environmental safety. The mangrove ecosystems are now become crucial, especially to mitigate the impact of climate change, as Honorable Vice Chancellor highlighted some of the key issues nowadays, the global warming and the sea level rise and so on. So that is definitely mangroves have some capacity to mitigate that kind of negative impact. That's why we have to treasure the mangroves. Maybe some people might have, they can be replaced easily. It is not so. As Vice Chancellor sir said, we must be like we are custodians actually. So we must take care of it. These fruits, whatever we get in terms of goods and services from the mangroves, should pass on to generation. It should not end with one generation. It should go on so that our planet remains safe and we remains healthy. So before I begin my talk, I would say today I would like to highlight the importance of mangrove ecosystems, especially in terms of carbon sequestration, which can helpful for mitigating the impact of climate change. And at the same time, I would like to bring up two case studies for you. One is from India, Koringa mangrove ecosystem, and another one is in Natang, in Malaysia. So I'm comparing these two ecosystems for you to understand how the vegetation distribution or historical importance, how these two ecosystems are managed. Actually, they are historically known places. They're historical. Koringa itself is having a history being used as a port, deep seawater port actually, during 1800 years, in the mid of 1800s. So Britishers have used, earlier it used to be called as Korangi, not Koringa, Korangi. So so such kind of things also exist in India, in Malaysia. So I would like to present those two cases and show you how the people in India are managing, how the people in Malaysia are managing, how come they become so important in the scientific literature, and also getting an international attention to be a global reference points and so on. So before I get into my talk, maybe some of you might be interested to know where I'm exactly working. I'm working with the University Malaysia Terengganu in Malaysia. It is on the east coast of peninsular Malaysia. I've been working on wetland ecosystems and biodiversity assessment, spatio-temporal dynamics using remote sensing, conservation and management. Nowadays, for the conservation and management, we must have to include that social sciences. They are really playing a very strong role for appropriate protection and conservation and management of the resources. So without the social part, we can't do much. Merely the rules, regulations cannot protect the ecosystem. So we have to make the local people as the guardians. So once we give them some responsibilities, so they become the guardians for the mangrove forest, and they can protect themselves from any kind of so I have been working in right from the when I count from 1995 when I joined mangrove research in Andhra University. It's almost 24 years, more than 24 years journey, and learn a lot of lessons in different countries. And that's why I'm here to share some of them with you. Hope you like them. And I'm sure I don't make you bored. I try to make you relax as much as possible. Yes, this is the location of my university. As I said, it is on the east coast of peninsular Malaysia in Terengganu. It is just 100 meters away from South China Sea. So we are very close to the marine resources. So we have mangrove ecosystems inside the campus. I don't need to go anywhere. Just go out of my office. I can sit in the mangroves. So as I said, it is a living laboratory. So many people conduct experiments. For example, the migratory birds, what are the birds coming up, and how the decomposition rates. For example, the leaves fell down and how fast they are decomposing with water, without the water, with fresh water, with marine water. So that kind of different studies could be just a matter of thinking. That's it. So you can really and that kind of it opens the doors for everybody to really look into such kind of options. So we are very fortunate in that sense. We are very located just adjacent to South Tennessee. I don't think Adikavan Annya University is far from Kakinada or sea, because you are just adjacent to, you're fortunate to sit next to River Godavari, which is ending in Kakinada in the Bay of Bengal. So it is just within 100-meter radius. You can plan much more better scientific studies, I believe. Okay, this is the one I wanted to show you. These photographs is to show you the structural complexity of the root system of mangroves. Definitely, if you see this kind of a photograph, you think, oh no, it is very difficult to work in mangroves. No, it is not. It is a bit difficult, but your passion, your interest can easily overcome. You can overcome from that. Not impossible. It is possible. People are working. They're passionate. So only thing is you should like working on mangrove ecosystem. Once you like, you love the mangroves, no doubt about it. So we always feel, once you are in the office, you feel like touching mud is difficult. But once you are in the mangroves, I like to roll out on mangrove floor. So that is the joy you will get it once you enter into the mangrove ecosystem. Forget about everything. That is the beauty that can bring to your mind. The mangrove ecosystem can bring to your mind. The one fact is clear. The mangroves are existing at the river mouths, as you can see, because that is an Eushorine environment where there is a fresh water and river water mixed regularly with the high tide and low tides. Okay, so being located close to the river mouth, these forests always gets inundation. That means the high tide water gets into the forest and low tide gets out of the forest. That means it will be exposed sometime, it will be inundated for some time. That kind of conditions make you trouble sometimes as well. But your passion of science and scientific research, these all things are neglected. We all are working. For example, when you go to Kakinada, every 6 hours, tide changes. High tide comes at 6 o'clock, again low tide, 12 o'clock. And again 6 o'clock in the evening, high tide comes, low tide at mid. So that means you have 2 high tides and 2 low tides in a day. That's what we call it as semi-diurnal tidal nature. But in some areas, we have only 1 tide and 1 high tide and 1 low tide in a day. That is what we call it as a diurnal tidal nature. And some locations, we have mixed tides as well. So you have to just plan your research in such a way that you can cover maximum area during the low tide, or depending on the tide, the type of what you want to pursue. That's what ultimately matters. For some people, high tide matters. They don't want low tide. Even high tide is also good for you to reach to the as close to the forest. You can easily, your boat can go close to the forest peripheral margins so that you can easily enter into the forest. So that is also advantage of high tide. So we just have to count how big the high tide, what is the tidal amplitude. So you just have to look into those matters before you jump into the mangroves. Once you planned well, nobody can stop you. Nobody can stop you. Believe me. So some people think, oh, mangrove trees are very tall. 30, here you can get 30 meters height. In India, in Kakinada, maybe around 15 or less than 20 meters height. But here 30, 35 meters height. So even just to measure the diameter of the tree, students got to climb 5 to 6 meters. Can you believe? The tree 5 to 6 meters, you have to climb up just to measure the diameter. So, but that is a big fun. That's what really makes you so healthy. You don't have to go for a special exercise. That is what shed a lot of fat. And you always, when I come back from mangroves, I'm so happy and I'm so healthy. But once I'm in the office, I'm sick. Most of the times sick of doing in the office work. So the mangroves can make me so healthy, and that's what we need, human needs. And also making a plot inside the mangroves to evaluate different vegetation structural parameters is not an easy job. That's what makes you difference when you have a passion for the science and your love for the mangroves to work in the mangrove ecosystem. Sometimes we also measure the elevation inside. So that means we will know which point will be inundated, until what point the high tide will be inundated today, and what point will be exposed. So our research can be planned accordingly. Okay, until this point, there will be water. Afterwards, there is no water. That means our experiment will be conducted in the water or without the water, with water or without water. So such kind of practices you can implement for your research. I'm sure we have all these facilities. These are not sophisticated equipment, and the mangrove itself is a living laboratory for you all to go and jump in any time. In simply, scientifically, many people must be wondering what exactly mangrove, how to define the mangroves. The most recent definition, they say they are the plants that grow in tropical, subtropical, and warm temperature latitudes along the intertidal land-sea interface bays, estuaries, lagoons, and backwaters. So this is the recent scientific definition. And many people might be thinking all mangroves are woody trees, that is big trees. No, not necessarily. There are 3 species which are non-woody. That means they're not really a wood contributing species. When you look at these 3 species, these are the 3. Nipa palm, which looks like a coconut, tree. So it is a one species. And there is another species called acanthus. Acanth means spine. The leaves, when you look at their leaves, they have spines. So acanthus. There is another species, acrostichum. This is a very good edible. When you go to Sri Lanka or when you go to some places, Indonesia, they make a very good herbal dish with this species. And the leaves of this particular species is very delicate. So one thing I can say to the students or to other interested people, to study the mangroves, you don't have to be a botanist. That is for sure. And myself is not a botanist. That is for sure. That means because the mangroves are not many species like terrestrial vegetation. It is hardly 70 species, and every species has a unique characteristic for you to identify. So you don't have to be really a high taxonomic botanist to work on mangroves, not necessarily. Your experience can make you perfect scientist in the mangroves. Like me, I'm a live example. I studied zoology. I never studied. When I started my career in 1995, when I joined Andhra University, I got to appear for an interview in front of the principal. And principal asked me, can you tell me one species? At the time, I don't know even one species. I cannot spell rhizophora. So I tried 4 or 5 days to remember, recollect, and by heart that species names. But now I'm one of the one of the good scientists, which you can rely upon. So that's what this is an encouragement. Anybody ever interested, you can be a mangrove ecologist or mangrove social ecologist scientist. So you just apply your theoretical concept in the living laboratory, you to flourish in the field of science. That's it. And I believe that in the world, not the people working on mangroves are not all botanists. They're not at all. Okay, coming to see the geographic differentiation of mangrove extents along the prime meridian line. On the right is Atlantic East Pacific. On the left, you have Indo-West Pacific region. So the mangroves which you are occurring in the Indo-West Pacific region are also known as Old World mangroves. So the mangroves which are occurring in the Atlantic East Pacific, they are known as New World mangroves. So there are assumptions that a lot of mangroves must have, the mangroves have a very beautiful regeneration mechanism. That means the seed, whichever the mangrove seed fall into the water, it can subject it to the tidal action. That means it can float on the tidal water and it can reach to different locations. That's what we call it as hydroporous phenomenon. So that hydroporous phenomenon can bring the seeds from one location to another location. So that's why people started having an assumption that the mangroves must have emerged in the old world and they slowly migrated to the new world. But indeed, it's not 100% correct, but still that kind of assumptions are there because of hydroporous germination. So it is not only the rich diversity of the mangrove ecosystems, but also the coral distribution and the seagrass distribution quite high when you look into the old world when compared to the new world. So in simple words, the mangroves, the seagrass meadows, and the coral reefs have a very good synergy. They work together for the benefit of the mankind, for the benefit of the oceans. So, for example, the animals living in the oceans, the small ones, they come to the mangroves for the shelter because a lot of extensive root system in the mangroves, they can keep them safe from the predators. So that kind of protection, and also the leaves from the mangroves rich in organic nutrients, so they can go on eating, and once they get some suitable size, they can go back to the sea. At the same time, the nutrients discharged from the upstreams, they are also going back to the sea, so that it becomes, the coastal waters become protective. And the synergy between the coral reefs and seagrass beds and the mangroves, they are useful for stabilizing the area, land area, and keep the land safe from the erosions. And at the same time, a big waves like tsunamis, so they can keep the hamlets safe. So when you look into the species, as I said, it is not many in the whole world. You can say 120 countries are having mangrove. More than 120 countries have mangrove populations, mangrove forests. So the maximum species diversity, which is in Southeast Asia, which is about 30 species, more than 30 species. The maximum 40, if you include the hybrids, when you compare with the New World. So there is a very good extent, especially the forest like Koringa in India, that contribute a lot. There are so many species, as many as 15 species, true mangroves. I tell you, I explained to you what is a true mangrove species. So when you look into the benefits of the healthy mangrove ecosystem, no doubt you have a lot of land building. As I said, the waves cannot really destroy the land, but at the same time, mangroves act as a sacrifice. They sacrifice themselves. Sometimes you see the mangroves uprooted. That means they have hit by a strong wave or wind that has made the mangrove tree as uprooted. So there is some sacrification, but still it protects the population behind. That means it is not only the vegetation, but also the human populations behind. Property and the populations are saved, especially after the incident of tsunami in 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. There are so much publications highlighted the role of mangroves. I think Dr. Sunanda will explain a bit about the stories from Sri Lanka about this also, I believe. So there is this mangroves healthy. When they are healthy, they can protect a good land, and at the same time they keep the water clean. You are liberating everything. I mean, you are just releasing the waste, industrial waste, domestic waste, and some plastics and whatsoever. Simply you are putting into water, but they're the one ultimately reaching to the mangrove ecosystems in the coastal area. The mangroves are, as you know, they can trap the sediment, not only the sediment, but also the garbage, the pollutants. But as long as it is in the minimum levels, it's okay. But if it exceeds the limits, then it is a problem, which can enter into the upper trophic levels, which is humans, which can create the problems for the human health. Okay, so it is a clean water mangroves can provide. And also in many ways, there are so many migratory birds that come to halt in the mangroves, because once it is low tide, there are so many small microorganisms that are on the surface of the soil. So many birds will come and choose these areas as their halting places, temporary halting places. And they can then from there, they can fly again. And also ecotourism. There is a lot of income, and one way for creating awareness on the mangroves to the public through creating ecotourism options, but at the same time, the people are living livelihood, supporting the livelihood. So when you look at these all ecosystem services, like many people are getting fuel wood and livelihood, and also coastal protections, wave filtrations, and fisheries. Most important, a lot of fisher folks are dependent on mangrove ecosystems because they have a wide variety of fishes, not only the freshwater, brackish water. That means from freshwater as well as from the marine water, you have species like tiger prawns. Once you go to mangroves, yeah, the small juveniles will be there a lot. The wild seed, they call it as wild seed. And most importantly, they contribute to the climate change. When you say these all services, the politicians are not interested. Oh no, these are normal. We can do, maybe instead of mangroves, we can go with the seawall construction. rocks. We can keep the rocks to prevent the erosion, but it is not the solution. Mangroves are beyond that just protection. And so politicians or whatever the managers, when you tell them the benefits in terms of money, they can easily grab that attention rather than explaining the things. So the mangrove ecology scientists also calculating the money, started calculating money for every services. You know how much benefit you could expect from mangrove ecosystem? It could reach up to 800 billion per year. The benefit of the mangrove ecosystems, 800 billion per year is the range of. So once you put it in the currency, people can easily realize the importance. But when you say in the words, people don't realize. So that is the problem. Of course, that is the mindset change that should be changed in the mindsets. So people started, mangrove ecologists or mangrove scientists started putting everything in terms of money so that it can be conveyed from top to bottom levels. As everyone said, carbon's dynamics is very important nowadays because the global warming is now non-stoppable. It cannot stop. There may be chances to mitigate, but we cannot stop because everything is raising. The usage of cars raising, the usage, the construction of factories raising, the population increasing, the dependency of resources increasing. How can you expect the climate change to be decreased? No, it is not possible. Is now it is like corona. We are suffering. We need to suffer. Only thing is we just have to find the best solutions to mitigate the impact of the climate change, especially the carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide can warm up the temperatures quite rapidly. That's where a few wetland ecosystems like mangroves, they can capture the carbon through the respirations, and they can store carbon inside and help us to lower the temperatures greatly. Unfortunately, we cannot grow mangroves everywhere. Mangroves we cannot grow everywhere. They have their suitable substratums. So that's why at least we have to protect what is there. Especially when you cut the trees, a lot of carbon released. But luckily, there is more carbon stored underground. So the ground should not be disturbed quite easily. For example, construction of the aquaculture ponds and so on. So when you disturb the soil, the release of carbon is much more than disturbing the forest. I mean, above ground forest. So now the future is almost like blue carbon. Everybody is talking about the blue carbon. Blue carbon is nothing but the amount of carbon captured and stored in the oceans and in the coastal ecosystems, particularly the vegetated lands like mangroves, seagrass meadows, and tidal marshes. When you calculate the amount of this blue carbon benefit and so on, the mangroves still contributing quite high, up to $90,000, more than $90,000 per 1 hectare. That is the contribution mangroves are making for the well-being of the humans. That's why we can consider the mangrove ecosystems as a nature-based solution. Instead of destructing them and trying to recreate them, which is not an easy task, sometimes we cannot there will be irreversible changes. So we cannot bring back the forest again to the world, to the original stands. So we must pay attention to the ones which are already existing now without much disturbance. We must take care of the ecosystem in such a way that it has a equilibrium of exchange of water, tidal circulations, and so on. It is a healthy atmosphere should be there. So that's where when you consider mangroves, it is a nature-based solution. It is a living laboratory, and it is a nature-based solution to mitigate the impact of carbon climate change. So when you compare with the carbon storage among the major global forest domains, like boreal forest, temperate forest, tropical upland, mangrove in Indo-West Pacific. Definitely, the amount of carbon stored in the mangroves is quite high. And when you look into the world, the mangrove storage of carbon, the world mangrove extent can reach up to 4 billion tons of carbon. It can reach the storage capacity of the mangroves. It can reach up to 4 billion tons of carbon, which is huge. So nowadays you must have come across these global climate change scenarios quite closely. I have been listening to some news now in Andhra. Also, there were so many debates about the increasing temperatures, increasing sea level changes, and so on. So this is what this is the Intergovernmental Panel for Climatic Change. So this is the one. These are the projections they made. So under the natural conditions, if it is close to zero, definitely you are going to see if by 2020, we are already witnessed a 1 to 1.5 degree rise in the temperature, global surface temperatures. Already witnessed. If this trend continues, it is no wonder it can reach another 3 degrees more, which can bring a lot of ice melt and your sea levels rise, which can be again 1 to 1.5 meters. So what will happen? This is by 2100 years. So many places we are going to miss. For example, in India, the NASA has already projected the climate, sea level rise scenario for almost 12 countries, 12 places. Sorry, 12 places. So this is what exactly looks like. For example, in the East Coast, it is reaching up 0.15 to 0.5 meter, half a meter level of sea level rise is expected. Whereas on the East Coast, it is a bit much higher. For example, Bhavanagar in Gujarat going up to 0.8 meters. So it is really a point, an important point for all of us to realize the importance of the ecosystems, not only mangroves, but also any coastal ecosystem, especially the wetlands, to really protect, take of humans, safety, and well-being. And the mangroves, in generally, are contributing a lot for sustainable development goals. It has a mangroves have a major stack at the sustainable development goal below life below the sea, a major stock. But every sustainable goal, for every sustainable goal, mangrove have some role to play. Coming to the threats, the mangroves, yeah, as many people can expect, oh, we can destroy the mangroves because they are the wastelands. They have no use. But after listening to this one, definitely you know the use of mangroves. They're not wastelands. They're useful lands. They're the treasures given by the nature. We still have to protect the treasure. But the most common interest, common opinion among the people, when you ask them, oh, why you don't need mangroves? Because a lot of mosquitoes in the mangroves. That is the common reason they say. Indeed, mangroves have mosquitoes, but what was the reason? You should have to understand there are reasons behind it. Mangroves, we are the one creating reasons for the mangroves to the mosquitoes to breed in such kind of locations. This is actually, I wanted to say, that's why it is time to change the perceptions of the public. So such kind of perceptions must be eradicated, must be diluted in such a way. No, mangroves are not that bad. Actually, we are the one creating the habitats for the mosquitoes to go into the mangroves for breeding. So such kind of wrong assumptions must be cleared from the common man mindsets. As I'm talking about the mosquitoes, yes, this is the slide which I want to show you. See, the mangroves, as I said, that can trap the sediment. As you all know, it can trap the sediment and help to build the land. But at the same time, the garbage which you release into the water, that will reach us ultimately the coastal areas and the mangroves, and they will be trapped by the root system and the trunks. So what happens? Such kind of there are some species which can grow in shrine environment, but the ones like Aedes, which can bring in dengue fever, chikungunya, and Zika virus, they are the one mostly associated with this kind of debris. So once the debris reach to the mangroves, the rainwater, they need, because they need fresh water for breeding. So the rainwater will be trapped into the kind of plastic vessels that further acts as a breeding grounds for the mosquitoes. So in such cases, we must be very careful before you release anything into the water. Must be very careful. You must be choosy, and it is not that at your wish you can release anything in the water. But it is not blaming you. It is not blaming India, or not blaming. Many places are like this. For example, see what I see in my mangrove field or nature. Means they released so far, but got stuck into the mangrove. They're stuck by the mangrove root system here. So some of my students, when they found it, they just had some fun there. So that means, can you imagine the people even ready to release the furniture? Maybe one day in future, we don't have to buy furniture. When we go to mangrove, we can get all the things, refrigerator and so on. That should not be the case. That should not be the case. And this is the one sometimes just to make fun out of it. This is the icebox cover. When we were working in the mangrove, suddenly it got raining, and my student has used icebox cover to record the data. So that kind of plastic sometimes useful to you also when you are working in mangroves. So this is just to make fun. Don't take it seriously. Okay, I just wanted to share today to bring you two examples how the mangrove ecosystems are conserved, managed in two countries. One is India, another one is Peninsular Malaysia. So in India, I want to go with Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary. That is what is Koringa Mangroves. It is located on the east coast of India, River Godavari. So this forest in Malaysia is called as Mutang forest. Actually, these two areas are historically very important, as I said, because the Britishers have used these areas as a deep sea port for transport of coal and rubber and so on, some goods. So they have been historically important places. And when you look into the conservation side, Koringa mangroves in Kakinada Bay on the east coast of India, they are mostly conserved. That means there is no one allowed to cut down the trees. That is like, it is a rule. It is that people are not allowed to destroy the forest. That is same for many countries. Huh? There are many people who follow the same rule. Like, but surprisingly, when you come to Batam, can you expect the people cut this forest for mangrove poles and charcoal? They make mangrove pole and charcoals. So they are doing it from 1900 in the beginning of the 20th century. Still going on, and it will go on for long. So there are two contrasting management scenarios. One is fully conserved without any touch, and this one is the whole forest is up to 80% of the forest is subjected for periodical cutting of the forest. So it is interesting for you to see how the India, how our Koringa is conserved, and how this one. For example, everybody thinks, oh, when they cut the forest, that is going to be too much carbon release, or so. But there are some concerns. But this management is going since last 115 years. So it is interesting for you to learn such kind of management. So I want to present you what exactly I witnessed from these two case studies. So the first case is Koringa mangrove forest. You are here in Rajahmundry. not very far. It is just within 100 kilometer radius. You can just go anytime to visit the mangroves, and I will be there for some time in the near future to see, to take you for the educational trips and provide you in-field education. For example, I will conduct a mangrove field school. That is one of the ideas which we can pass it on to Adhikavananya University. Come up with a mangrove field school. That means we take them students and we literally live in mangrove environment for 2 weeks or so. So that means they will experience everything right from the mangrove hydrological conditions to the vegetation parameters and socioecology and so on. So we can design that kind of program to bring them into limelight, and students can pay minimum charges to join this program. And with this kind of awareness, at the same time, the university can bring up the name like field school. It is summer school or winter school, whatsoever we name it as. I named it in Malaysia, I named it as Mangrove Field School. Similarly, we have similar things in Sri Lanka as well. So such kind of things we can plan for Adhikavananya University. So this Koringa mangrove forest is one of the chief wetland ecosystems in Andhra Pradesh, and second largest next to Sundarbans on the east, along the east coast. You must have known what is Sundarbans. It is in West Bengal. Actually, that forest is shared by Bangladesh and India, which is the largest extent of mangrove forest, more than 1,500 square kilometers of the forest. Sundarbans. Sundarbans is also known for existence of tigers. That is the very unique place. You can find the tigers which are known as Royal Bengal tigers. They live in Sundarbans. So the second largest is Koringa mangrove along the east coast, which is located in Gautami Godavari, distributary and on the east coast of India. So it was declared as a wildlife sanctuary in 1978. It is still there. There are so many sanctuary borders are there, 9 to 11 borders. So people conserve in relation to the reserve forest boundaries. So when you look into this is some of the findings when I worked for my doctorate thesis in long back in 1995 to 2002 at Andhra University. I found 31 species plant composition in Koringa. Out of 31 exclusive mangroves are 11 species. Exclusive mangroves means what I said before, like true mangroves. That means the mangroves which really like to live in the tidal influence zones. There are some species, they live in the mangroves, but they are not necessarily mangroves. They can be associates. They're not necessarily mangroves. So, but when you say exclusive mangroves are the ones really like to live in the tidal inundation areas, and they're really influenced by the tidal distribution. There are some non-exclusive mangroves, the species which really don't form big pure stands, and they're only limited distribution. So there are non-exclusive species, and there are also mangrove associates, several 10 species of mangrove associates, and also salt marshes. That's a non-woody grass varieties, about 6 species. So it is not a big complex ecosystem. It is a small with a very good plant composition species, 31 species of mangroves, total plant composition, and easy to work on in the vegetation dynamics. However, once I finished the mangrove research in Koringa, there was a new report of one more species in Koringa mangroves, Galacorpus granatum. So in that case, there will be one more species addition to the list what I have announced just now. The beauty of this kind of forest, you can use remote sensing technology. So Adhikavananya University and everybody now, even the irrigation and the drainage and those authorities in Kakinada also have remote sensing laboratories. So students, interested students, can work at the university campus or can work with the prominent persons like just now with Kakinada. So this irrigation systems and the drainage systems. So these all are important for the health of the ecosystem. So in that case, you can make use of the remote sensing data for identifying the mangrove extent and identifying the areas where the mangroves have destroyed or where the mangroves have potential for the colonization in the near future, and so on. How the Hope Island is changing over the period of years, and so on. So many things, because sometimes the Hope Island get cutting in between because of the seasonal tidal influence. So the tidal water from Bay of Bengal can immediately enter into the Kakinada Bay. That can bring in a lot of hydrological changes. So how it is going to impact the usual conditions, so such on. So it is not a one-day job, it is a daily job. When you go to the field, you can do everyday research. You can learn every day. The conditions what you observed cannot be same for tomorrow. It keep on changing. So that is the beauty. So it is a living laboratory for you to explore every day. There is no limit for your research. So by using the remote sensing, you can come up with the extent of mangrove forest, how big the mangrove forest, how much the unvegetated areas or plantation areas are there in the Kuringa, and how much the casuarina plantations are there. So such kind of aerial statistics you should be able to provide to the scientific community or to the next generations to what to do, or to the mangrove conservation and management authorities, to the forestry department. This is some of the observations from my research that when you look at the point, it is some sort of a multi-dimensional representation. When you reach the point, you will know how many species are distributed in that particular point in relation to the density, in relation to the height of the species. That's why I made it as a multi-dimensional representation where you can count the number of species and also their height out of my research. So when you go now back to the forest ecosystem, you should be able to compare the changes after 2 decades. What kind of changes really happen in the Kuringa mangrove ecosystem? That's a very big boom for the research activities. So once we have tabs with so many eminent personalities and government organizations, so your research is quite simple. You have all logistic facilities. So that's what the lecturers and students can come up with such kind of plans. That can be, I myself, on Sunanda from Sri Lanka, we can help you to tune your projects in such a way that we can meet international standards. That means we need international standards because we can spread the message globally. That means we must follow some standards so that our message is recognized very well. That's my motto. That's why I'm hinting international standards, so that we can bring up an excellent research. Kuringa is like we really come, we that's what in my previous presentation to Nanaya University, to the Honorable Vice Chancellor, maybe the PG Center or some research station, if we can establish a research station, that will be fantastic for the students. Really, they don't need to travel Rajahmundry to Kakinada every day. They can stay there, they can conduct the research, they can use the facilities, and so on. And most importantly, I would like to compare the species, whichever I said, the 30 species in the mangroves, like the way you have friendship. You cannot be friend to everybody, right? You have your own network. I like to be friend with only 10 people. I like to be friend with 2 people. I like to be friend with 3 people. Similarly, the mangrove plants also have their own preference, friendship. That's where they form as a groups. You can see from Kuringa, I found like 5 groups of species. So 5 groups of species. So then you can plot those 5 groups where exactly they are occurring. So when you go to the plantation, for example, what you see in great shade here is these are the barren areas. It is in 99 image, okay? Now it is not like that anymore. It has been planted replanted with the mangroves, planted by Forest Department and MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. NGOs. So now once you know which plants are making a good friendship, then you can choose these areas in relation to their preference. You can go with that kind of plantation of that kind of species. So that can help you to succeed in your plantation efforts. It's where what we call it as local knowledge, local ecological knowledge. Even that could be comes from a scientist, or that could be come from a layman there, fisherman. They can give you, oh, I used to see riser for a year. Maybe you should consider his voice. Maybe that is a good place for that particular species. So such kind of local knowledge, ecological knowledge is important. And at the same time, when you make the local people as part of your project or management, what we call it as citizen science, it makes a lot of difference. When this is simply a topic, in Telugu we used to say, when you give the keys to a thief, you don't dare to go for theft in the same house. You don't steal anything from the same house when you give him a key for the protection. Same logic you are applying. You are giving the responsibility to the common man living there in their area, so they become a guardian for that area. That's how we can increase their responsibility. We can give them a recognition. That's how the natural resources can be preserved in an appropriate way. Sometimes the rules cannot protect the mangroves. Impossible. People have different mindset. If I go with the gun, no, they kill me. There are several incidents happened in Coringa. So that people have different mindsets, but we have to enter into their footsteps and then bring them back into our scenario of conservation. That is the best logic. Wonderful. As I said, you have a tidal influence mangroves. You can also derive the elevation with reference to the mean sea level. And those groups, you can identify what is the elevation in the mangroves. And similarly, you can go for the plantation works. For example, in this slide, you can see what are the species arranged in relation to the elevation with reference to mean sea level. So the elevation is increasing, the number of plants decreasing. So such kind of scientific data is also invaluable for you to conserve mangrove vegetation. Very much useful. So not only plants, as I was talking right from the beginning, there are so many resident fauna, migratory fauna. So crabs, mollusks, they have a plenty of scope for you from the zoology department, the biology department, and how these mollusks and crabs are exploited by the local community, that is socio-ecological. So such kind of intervening these all disciplines, as our Honorable Vice Chancellor said, interdisciplinary. Yes, it is possible through the special interest groups. Once we form a special interest group, then we can easily lead that kind of topic. For example, I'm expert in mangroves, but you are expert in crabs. Yes, why don't we plan together? Some nice topic. So that such kind of things are is possible to come up. At the time, I used to see the Coringa mangroves. Some of the parts of the Coringa mangroves have been exploited for mangrove fieldwood. I used to live in Kakinada for my research. Almost like 7 years I spent in Kakinada. And every day I used to go by opium motor boat, and then I used to come across this kind of sceneries. And also some part of the forest has been restricted for the aquaculture constructions and the dikes construction for the aquaculture ponds and so on. So this can have negative impacts on the mangroves. And some even people used to release their cattle into the mangroves because they think, for example, if there is any person working on the quality of the milk or chemistry, so maybe they can examine the milk that produced by the cattle that released into the mangroves. Because the farmer is always believe that the mangrove, the cattle, the buffaloes which are eating mangrove fodder are giving fat, rich milk. That is their assumption. That's why they are leaving cattle. They're just making small houses, and the borassus trunk, they put fresh water, because the buffalo don't drink saline water. So they bring fresh water, from the home, and they keep it in the grasses trunks, and the cattle is living there by eating the mangrove fodder. Maybe somebody can check, is the assumption correct or not, and to what extent. They say, yeah, if it is the milk is fat, we can dilute it double the times to sell in the market. So such kind of assumptions can be can be checked again, can be revisited, that kind of plot. And these are the the bivalves that have been exploited by the local people for the lime preparations. The lime is widely used for the aquaculture industries, disinfecting. So not only that, some ornaments also, they make it some toys, they come up with toys. Every day they exploit a lot of bivalves from the Karangi area. Like Placuna placenta is another bivalve. Yes, this is what I want to show you. It is a long story. In Kakinada, it happened in 2001. One time they released the factory effluent. See how dark it is. Can be even detected from the satellite image. The impact is so vast, and when you release such kind of pollution into the canals, you may see the fish, dead fish floating. But what happened to benthic organisms? They don't float. For example, when the prawn died, they don't float. They will be settled on the bottom. Bivalves died, they settle on the bottom. The benthic organisms, mostly they are on the bottom, even after death. So only fish you may be visible because they float after death. So this is completely disaster for the ecosystem. I believe that this kind of incidents are not taking place anymore, but this is just to show you this is what we come across in 2001. And then immediately we planned one topic. Okay, exactly how long it takes to flush out that kind of pollution, really to flush out of the Kakinada Bay and enter into the sea. Because the longer the duration, the higher the effect on the mangroves and the resident fauna. For example, we released a ball, in a small ball, and we tracked with the GPS to what extent it is going. So by 5 o'clock, it is coming back again. So when Matlapalam Canal, also it is coming back again at 6 o'clock in the evening. In the morning, 9 o'clock in the Koringa Canal, after at 8 o'clock, it is coming back again. Because it is diurnal tides. The tides are changing every 6 hours. So the pollution has a long resident time inside the Kakinada Bay. If you release something into the Kakinada Bay, it has a long effect, long run effect. It is a high resident time inside the Kakinada Bay. So it is all negative consequences. So please don't release any pollutants, and please make sure that the pollutants are well treated before the release, and don't release the litter or garbage as you wish. It takes a long time to flush out. But meanwhile, there will be a lot of fauna, flora that we're going to have a negative impact. But you might argue me saying that, oh, mangroves are acting as a sewage plants. Of course, they absorb sediments, and they also absorb pollutants, trace metals, elements, and so on. But there is a limit for it, not that as you wish. For example, once you release excess quantity from the factories and the domestic into the mangroves, there will be a biomagnification, bioaccumulation and biomagnification. Bioaccumulation means the pollutants gets accumulated into the body of the organisms which you will consume. For example, fish, if they're living in the polluted environment, are the one going to consume them. That means they are directly entering into your body. That's what we call it as biomagnification. That means the transfer of pollutants from one level to different trophic levels. So these all are devastating. So this and ultimately you will have a decrease in number of organisms and the retarded growth of the mangrove forest, and it is like a failed cases. So we have to take care of the mangroves. It is not simply conservation. We have to conserve them to be in a healthy state. To be in a healthy state. Okay, move to the second example. I want to show you to the mangroves in in Mutang in Malaysia. Actually, Kuringa is 200 square kilometers and the Matang is about 400 square kilometers. It is double the size of Kuringa. And historically, as I said, it is quite related. And this is mangroves area is under the management for mangrove poles and charcoal production, mangrove charcoal production, which has a very good international market since the beginning of the 20th century. And still it is popularly known as best mangrove forest, best managed mangrove forest in the world. But scientifically, we have some concerns about it. But still, if you say what is the common man, say best managed mangrove forest, because it has a long history of more than 115 years of management and still going on. So many people livelihood depend on the mangrove ecosystem. Okay, this is how the mangrove forest looks like. And there are different forests also available here inside mangroves, different species. And mostly 80% of the forest is dominated by one species, two species that belongs to Rhizophora, Rhizophora apiculata and Rhizophora mucrinata. These are the only two species. Up to 80% forest is dominated by these. Why these two species are dominant? Because the people prefer these two species for the poles and charcoal. That's why they plant these two species. That's how it becomes a dominant forest area. So along with these two species, the plant composition is almost 133 species, mangrove and non-mangrove plants in the vicinity. Exclusive mangroves are 27, quite higher than Kuringa. Non-exclusive and mangrove associates 76. So this is a remarkable area that you can learn how the people are cutting the forest, but still maintaining, still recognized as the best managed mangrove forest. Surprising, isn't it? Okay, this is how they manage the forest. This is the mangrove poles they produce from mangroves, Rhizophora species, and this is the charcoal. And they have a factory to make this charcoal. So every year, a lot of charcoal and pole is produced. And the mangrove forestry department, they will use a plan called working plan that will be made for every 10 years. And they will extract the poles and charcoal according to this working plan. So every 10 years, they prepare a plan in advance for the charcoal and production of the charcoal and the poles. How do they manage? Actually, they subject the mangroves for 30-year rotation. They subject the mangroves for 30 years rotation. That means they plant the mangroves, for example, Rhizophora species, and they will wait for 15 years. They wait for 15 years to have a thinning. That means they cut some of the trees to make the poles. They wait for this purpose, they wait for 15 years. And again, after 15 years, they wait for 5 more years. That is, the forest becomes 20 years. Again, they go for one more round of thinning. That is, again, they produce the poles. That means once you produce the poles, there will be a little competition among the trees, which allow them to grow much better. So for the charcoal, they wait for 10 more years. That means in total, you reach to the 30 years forest. Then they cut down the forest and they bring to the charcoal factories for the production of the charcoal. This is how the cycle runs every 30 years. This is how cycle runs. So this is a peculiar charcoal kiln, which looks like an igloo. So this is the place where they make the charcoal. So the process of charcoal, they arrange the logs and they put fire and they close the channel, and then ultimately, because of the smoke and heat, the charcoal will be produced. The green wood will be turned into the charcoal, and the charcoal will be exported to Japan or to the local markets. But 80% of the charcoal produced from here is exported to Japan. Only 20% is available for the local markets. Probably it is also the reason because people don't need charcoal because they have plenty of gas production. Unlike in India, we don't have to book gas. We just go every day 1 cylinder, every day 10 cylinders. They are readily available in the market. in the shops. There is no limit for your usage. So it is a subsidized gas cylinders are available in the market. So they don't care much about the charcoal. But some people who still depend on, the barbecue, some kind of shops, outside shop vendors, they still prefer charcoal because of the taste which they cook upon charcoal. Upon cooking charcoal, the barbecue tastes better than cooking on the gas. That's the only reason some shop people, they still use charcoal, but not most of the domestic people, they use gas, no more charcoal. So you must be wondering, how come this whole forest in 30 years they clear? No, they don't clear everything in the forest. They have 108 compartments in the entire forest. So if they come to this compartment, they will come back again after 30 years. So every compartment has historical age, age history. That means that is the best opportunity for you to study flora and fauna in relation to the age of the mangroves. That means you can see from the 0-year age of the forest to 30 years age of the forest. So you can conduct a lot of experiments. You can conduct a lot of mangrove related experiments. So to exploit this pole and charcoal, there are so many local peoples that they depend on this production system, and also a lot of villagers there depend on tree cutting and small jobs. It is a livelihood for them from last 100 years. This is just to highlight how the system works. Pole and charcoal production. Once the poles, they are mostly used in the Malaysia, but once the charcoal is produced, 20% is used locally, but 80% is used for the Japan export. And this shows how many people are involved at different stages. In addition to the charcoal and pole production, the Matang mangrove forest also highly also provide ecotourism for the outsiders, national and international tourists to come up and have educational tourism in the forest. And they conduct the mangrove plantations, and they create some awareness on dengue fevers and ecotourism and eagle watching and sunset dinners. You can arrange sunset dinners for the visitors and boat rides. And even if you want to stay inside the forest, they have chalet. You can rent them. For example, if I bring my students, we all stay in the chalet. We stay 7 days, 8 days, 10 days inside. That means every day morning we wake up with the nature calls, the bird calls, and we live in the forest. That's what makes our field school unique. That's what we can plan for Koringa or whatsoever. We can plan such kind of things. So that's why the Matang forest was referred to as a global reference point for many areas which can be learned the conservation and management techniques from Matang to be useful to adopt such kind of scenarios in the countries where mangroves are overexploited to minimize that impact. As I said, although it was popularly known as best mangrove, but still there are some concerns like carbon sequestration, whether it is neutral or carbon benefit or carbon loss, and how sustainable the forest management in terms of other biodiversity issues. So not one, it gives a way. We started one paper in 2011, but we end up with so many tasks gradually, because once you jump into the mangroves, countless topics come up into your mind. So, okay, coming to the last component of my presentation. Sorry if I take a long time. The Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary and the Matang mangroves. In Koringa, the plantations, the restoration of the mangroves, they use a fishbone technique, whereas the Matang mangroves, they use the line transects. They plant one species here, give a space, and one more propagule here, one more. So they go bit by bit with this from distance maintenance. Whereas in Koringa, they use a fishbone technique to go for the restoration technique. For example, as I said, there were so many barren areas when I was working in Koringa during 2000 times, at the beginning of 2000. But now you don't see them when you Google them. You don't see the kind of barren areas because most of them have been planted. Some areas have been replanted. So, as I said, with a fishbone technique, I have been doing it. This is quite promising, but there are some negative side effects also with the fishbone technique, especially with the sedimentation. It has to be monitored. That's where maybe some people can take up the challenge of looking into the hydrological conditions in the areas with the fishbone plantations and the areas without any fishbone plantations and so forth. So it's a wide open to wide range of topics. So once you see the Google Earth, you can see this kind of fishbone plantations, and also you can see some aquaculture, abundant aquaculture ponds behind Bhairav. It's a small village at the mouth of Gautami Godavari. So there are so many aquaculture ponds. They were abandoned, probably because of the white spot disease or whatsoever. So now they have been colonized by the mangrove. So such kind of studies. What exactly brought this recolonization? Did anyone do it manually, or that's helped the natural hydrocarbon helped to gain the forest recolonization? So such kind of topics to be could be evaluated. And then once you establish, then how best this habitat was recovered in terms of flora and fauna, because it is a man-made habitat, right? Because you are the one created this habitat. Earlier, it used to be a barren land. So did you bring back all the ecosystem goods and services or functionality of the forest? So you can check back scientifically. You can plan some topics in such a way that how best we can evaluate in terms of planted forest with the natural forest. What exactly the differences? Maybe some people must have observed, but I don't have any much knowledge because no publication I come across. That's what makes you to come up with publications. Research publications are the only source that you can spread the message without any boundaries. So please. And I know the Kringa Mangrove Forest also, they come up with eco-development committees by involving the local people to be part of the mangrove conservation, and the wall posters and also the paintings, the street paintings and so on. They all matters actually. I propose this kind of methods even for the mangrove conservation in Gambia, in the West Africa. So such kind of things are possible, and we can learn from our own stories as well. Now, some people can look into the satellite image data, how serious the coastal erosion. For example, when I worked on 93, 99, I see more than half meter has gone, but now it's already almost gone into the sea. So a lot of mangrove forest, when you see this whole patch gone into the sea in 2020. Can you imagine? Can we do something from geological side or coastal coastal protection side, also coming up with the geotubes or something like natural remedies to control the erosion? Can we do such kind of practice? Can that be a project, future project? Moringa, excellent. You are going to save a lot of mangrove, because if one, it is encroached, but it is, you cannot stop because it is the continuous heat. Sea level is rising, and you are going to come up with most extreme events, weather events regularly. You're not going to stop them. So once the extreme weather events are taking place, you are sure to lose more and more mangrove into the sea. Can we come up with some kind of strategy to put in, at least to minimize that kind of effects, erosion effects? That would be a good choice, and that would be a good project for future. So that's how our Indian system working on conservation. Coming to Malaysian restoration, yes, they do throughout the along the coast road Peninsular Malaysia, with more than 120 locations. But as I said, you cannot expect mangroves to grow everywhere. It's where they go for mangroves, and also some places, beach forests like Casuarina, they take at least some sort of a green belt is very much essential from the natural calamities like tsunamis and surge penetration, high velocity winds and waves. Especially the Bay of Bengal is prone to have a lot of cyclone effects. So such kind of things are we must project to the government and make awareness, because many people have less awareness. That's why the destruction is. We have to kind of bring the message into their language, especially if they are money-minded. Can convert the services into money and then convey the message to them. If they are service-oriented, then we can convey the services, natural services, to bring to their notice to conserve the resources. Once they plant the mangroves in Malaysia, they have a regular monitoring. I would appreciate that effect. Then we will know how fast they are growing, how best they are recognizing, how many trees are dying, what is the success rate of replantation, and so forth. You can easily monitor. We'll have a grip on plantation techniques, whether this plantation technique is okay. If not, what is the alternative plantation technique we follow, and so on. So it gives an idea for you to examine yourself. Once you are following means, you will have an idea what to do next. So that's why, in simple words, for a successful restoration of the mangrove ecosystems, definitely you need 2 phases of investigations under the appropriate scientific direction. So you should know some species-specific physiology and population biology, location, species environment relationship, and their competition, and so forth. And in the phase 2, definitely regular monitoring, identification of faunal and floral colonization, habitat recovery assessment. This all matters for you to succeed in your effort. Otherwise, the money is wasted. It is not only money, lot of hard work from the local communities. You engage a lot of people to get involved in the plantation efforts. But if the plantation is unsuccessful, it is ruining the energies. The local people also lose the passion. So that's why you really have to, your attempts must be a provoking concepts, and then encouragement for them. So for meeting such kind of things, stakeholders, as we were talking with eminent people, so the stakeholder role is very important, and especially when the stakeholders are given the 4 R's method, that means revenues, rights, responsibilities, and relationships. If they are shared among the stakeholders properly, I'm sure your mangrove ecosystem is going to be the best managed forest. Only thing is the share of these things, revenues, rights, responsibilities, relationships. Once they are realized, once you realize the importance of such kind of concepts, definitely, nobody can touch the forest. And it prevailed for long. And services, goods and services are extended from generation to generation. There is no limit. So finally, I would say a careful and scientific understanding of the composition and distribution of the environmental settings are important. And mixed plantations, in contrast to monoculture plantations, are perhaps more resilient against the natural and anthropogenic preparations. But most recent literature says monoculture plantations are not bad in terms of carbon sequestration. They are equally good. But probably anthropogenic and natural preparations, how strong they are, that is the point of concern. So continued monitoring and recovery assessments are vital, and also local knowledge, as I said, citizen science should be incorporated into the scientific projects to make them more successful. Last but not least, mangrove ecosystem is a social ecological system. That means people interested in wildlife, like dolphins, can go on. People interested in plantations go on. People interested in socio-ecological research can go on. People interested in remote sensing can go on. And people interested in pollution can go on. And conservation and management predations can go on. What is the limit? So it is a socio-ecological system. Mangrove is a socio-ecological system. There is no limit. So many fields, whoever interested, as long as you are coming to the coast, that's enough. Can take you inside. So I hope my talk has enlightened some of your brains to come up with some possible topics. Definitely, I can play a role to tune the topics in a better sense, scientifically better quality, and reproducible, also publishable, and so on. So definitely take my message and do well. I'm there with you whenever you need my assistance help. I'm there. I'm part of AKNU now, Adhikavananya University. I feel proud, and I'm very grateful to Honorable Vice Chancellor sir once again, and our beloved Principal Madam for giving this opportunity. And thank you so much. Yes, madam. I'm done. Sorry if I exceed the time. I'm sorry. This is the problem with the mangrove scientists. Once I get into the topic, I don't realize the time.
Thank you, Dr. Satyam, lovingly known as to all the marine biologists. That was an exhaustive and picturesque lecture from your side, completely justifying the topic of presentation. And definitely you have opened the minds of the youngsters here, why they should go into the study of the mangroves and different subject areas. And one thing I appreciate is before we could think what we have to do over here, you are telling the things, how to move about. Thank you for that, because and we look forward to do it with great cooperation and bring success and benefits to the students. At the end of the day, students should be going in the right direction and in the direction of their passion. Hope this is going to do that. Thank you once again, and we will listen to you once more. Thank you. Thank you. Now it's the time to listen to the second eminent person of the day, Dr. K. Sunanda. Sir,
I forget to mention to you earlier, Dr. Sunanda has some problem with sharing the slides. Has it been?
I have rectified it. Yes.
Okay, great.
Done.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's missed my mind.
So, yeah, it's done. Yes, now I request Dr. Sridhar to introduce our speaker. Dr. Sridhar, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I invite Dr. K. Sunanda sir to give the presentation. Sridhar, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible? Good afternoon to one and all. It's my immense pleasure to introduce today's next invited speaker, Sunanda sir. He got his master degree from Vrije University, Brussels, Belgium in 2011. He did his PhD in the fields of plant physiology in 2013 and funds received from the Green Dyke project. At present, he is working as a senior lecturer in Department of Botany, University of Ruhana, Sri Lanka. He has guided many students in PhD, MPhil, and MSc, BSc also. He got many invention and innovation awards and patents. He secured first place in Invention and Innovation Exhibition 2014, University of Ruhuna, Matara, Sri Lanka. Third place in Invention and Innovation Exhibition 2014, University of Ruhana, Matara, Sri Lanka. Winner of LC De Silva Memorial Gold Medal for highest grade points average in 2009 in the Faculty of Science. The most outstanding younger researcher 2020 Vice Chancellor Award, University of Ruhana, Matara, Sri Lanka. The most outstanding international convener 2020 Vice Chancellor Award, University of Ruhana. He served as a course coordinator, industrial training and research, Faculty of Science, University of Ruhana, Botanical Society, Department of Botany, Faculty of Science, senior coordinator, undergraduate research symposium, University of Ruhana, member in Career Fair 2014 in collaboration with the Career Guidance Unit, University of Ruhana, student counselor, Faculty of Science, University of Ruhana, senior editor, Botanical Society, Department of Botany, Faculty of Science. He has contributed to the newly established Mangrove Museum, Small Fisheries Federation of Lanka, SFFL 2016. Member of the Committee for Mangroves and Salt Marshes in Sri Lanka, Ministry of Environment, Sri Lanka. He also got Best Reviewer Golden Award. He got many grants, scholarships, scholarship for master degree and PhD degree, VUB, Brussels, Belgium, University Development Corporation of Belgium under VLIR own initiative, Green Dike project worth of 7,50,000 offered by University Grant Commission, Sri Lanka. Grants of rupees 92,000 offered by Faculty of Science, University of Ruhana. Grants of 53 million rupees, French Institute Indian Grant, FSPI, Cedric Project 2020-23. Grants of 80,000 offered by Faculty of Science, University of Ruhana. He got many research publications in peer-reviewed journals of international and national repute. He has presented his work in many international and national conferences, more than 32, edited books, and contributed to 2 book chapters. With this, I would like to invite Dr. Sunanda sir to deliver his presentation to today's national webinar participants. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. Over to Dr. Sunanda sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. First, I would like to thank Adikav University. I guess that I pronounced it correctly. So Adikav University and the Vice Chancellor, Professor Jagannathan, and Dr. Ramaneswari, and also Dr. Satyam, actually, who is the main factor in bridging University of Ruhana and Adikav University, and I should thank for him as well. And today, my presentation is about the blue carbon contents in Sri Lankan mangroves. And also, I would like to give you some insights at how blue carbon management have been used in climate change mitigation strategies in Sri Lanka. And that can be applied to some of the other countries as well. Right. Right. Speaking of Sri Lanka, so being the neighboring country, I believe that you are well familiar with our country. But you know that you might have heard about Colombo, the main city of Sri Lanka, and there are many places, you know, that it is full of different and diverse locations that you can visit. And there are some lot of important places as well. And if I speak about the University of Ruhana, it is in the southern part of the country. And really that I attached to Department of Botany and serving as senior lecturer. And these are the basic background information about myself. And first I thought to give some of the basic ins and outs about Sri Lankan mangroves and Sri Lankan different ecosystems, because I believe that it might be really useful for you all when you are following up this presentation. So I thought to give some basic ins and outs about some of the basic facts. Speaking of these different ecosystems in Sri Lanka, that you know that we are having about 15 different ecosystems. That if you start from the coastal side, you know that the seagrasses, mangroves, coral reefs, sand dunes, and if you are going more inward, so inward of inland side, that you can find rainforest, mountains, sub-mountains, savanna, and all these things. And if you see the distribution and diversity of these different ecosystems, that basically governed by the climate, right? So in that respect, we are having 3 main climate zones: wet, dry, and intermediate. And we receive rainfall from 2 major monsoons. We call it as southwest monsoon and east monsoon. And apart from that, you can find 2 intermonsoons as well. So this is how the country is set up basically. And mentioning about the coastline, because Sri Lanka is an island and we are having a very good coastline. So the length of the coastline is about 1,738 kilometers. And it includes different ecosystems like coral reefs, sand dunes, seagrasses, and so on and so forth. So these are the basic things that you can find on the coast. And more importantly, I would say that 1/3 of the population lives on the coast. Then it is not a surprise that most of these ecosystems are under threat of different human pressure. And also, I would like to say that because of this high human pressure, that we are much concerned about this coastal conservation and management. It has become one of the priority in Sri Lanka. And here that I have given you some of the major ecosystems that you can find along the Sri Lankan coastline. That if I specify on the eastern coast side, you can find more sand dunes. The lagoons are normally scattered all along the Sri Lankan coastline, and rocky shores more confined to the southern part of the country. Then again, the coral reefs you can find either on southern or eastern, and more importantly, mangroves. So when you're talking about these mangroves, that those are also scattered, but you know that they are normally show with some clusters, different clusters that I will come to that point in a minute. And apart from that, you can find sea grasses as well. So likewise, you can find these different diverse systems. But when we are talking about mangroves, actually mangroves in Sri Lanka has received much attention because 1/3 of the coastline of Sri Lanka is occupied by mangroves. It means that percentage-wise, it is about 30%, right? And you know that I think I don't need to give very basic details about mangroves. I'm pretty sure that you might have heard about these mangroves, but in general sense, we know that the mangroves are the only tidal forest that you can find at the confluence of sea and land. And most of these mangroves are confined to very sheltered shores. So in Sri Lanka, that we are having different estuaries, tidal creeks, lagoons, and that kind of sheltered shores. So mangroves are normally tend to establish these sheltered shores. And the third point is that when we are talking about these environmental conditions, that you all know that the environmental conditions are not too friendly for them. It's too harsh conditions that you can find in these ecosystems. For instance, frequent inundation, hypoxia, very boggy soil, high irradiance, and all these kind of things, giving so many pressure for these different plant species. So that's why, on the other hand, you can find there are a lot of different kind of adaptations that mangroves are having. Dr. Satyam has explained these different kind of adaptations, so I don't need to give some time for that kind of giving some details about these adaptations. There are many morphological, anatomical, and physiological adaptations. As a physiologist, I am much concerned about these physiological adaptations. That is really wonderful that if you go and look into different physiological adaptation, this particular plant group has. And if you take a look on the map that I have given you, it clearly shows you that all the district that belongs to the coastal region of the country, they include mangroves. But the highest cover that you can find in Batikla, it means that eastern coast of the country, and Jaffna, which is very close to India. So those are the places where we can find high cover of mangroves. And in global context, as Professor Satyam mentioned, that the total number of species that we have is about 73, but including hybrids can go up to sometimes 76. And if we take the global area, that it is about 15.2 millions. But in Sri Lanka, that we are having only 22 true mangrove species out of the 73. And when you talk about the estimated cover of mangroves in Sri Lanka, it is about 8,000 hectares. Some years back, we had about 12,000 hectares, but now due to the unprecedented destruction of these mangroves, normally it has reduced to 8,000 hectares. So at the same time, I would say that as Sri Lankans, we are receiving numerous, ecological services, and people are getting so many economic benefits out of these mangroves. Uh, then when you're talking about the major mangrove families or genera that we can find in Sri Lanka, the first one is Rhizophora species. The Rhizophora is pretty common, not only in Sri Lanka, but in other tropical countries as well. And the tropical, that the Rhizophora apiculata and mucronata are the two major species that we can find in Sri Lanka. So apart from that, Lumnitsera racemosa, Nympha fruticans, the palm tree, Exocaria agalocha, and series of species, especially series of sagal and decandra. These are the two major species that we can find under genus Cereops. And apart from that, we can find Bruguera and Bruguera sexangula and Gymnorrhiza, and Agiceras and also Avicennia species. So this is how the mangrove composition consists of in Sri Lankan context. And if you take a quick look on what are the major mangrove products available in Sri Lanka, it is pretty common that the most of the mangrove species have been used for construction, especially for housing and fencing. And also the people are not very reluctant to use some of the species as fuel wood. If you go to the if you go to very rural areas in the coast, people are really interested and they are having more benefits of using mangrove species as fuel wood for the firewood. I mean, in other words, we all know that it's firewood. And also used for fishing gears, and some of these propagules can be used as very tasty food. In Malaysia, I know personally, some of the propagules are being used as a very popular food, but in Sri Lanka also we do that one. And also some of the beverages. I will come to that slide in a minute. And more importantly, I guess that you all might be amused to see that some of the plant species are being used for medicine. For that they are having some medicinal value. So therefore, being used for some medical purposes. So I will show some of the species used for some of the medical purposes. This is Agiceras corniculatum. You might be familiar with this species. And you know that in Sri Lanka, we are having different medical systems. In local medical system, this is one of the very popular species being used to treat asthma, rheumatism, and diabetics. And as a plant physiologist, you know that no one has conducted any research to see the biochemistry, the chemical profile of this particular species yet. But in broad sense, you know that some of the scientists, they have conducted to see that what are the major chemical groups that are present in different mangrove species, but not, I mean, per se to this particular species. I would say that it's better to go and do what kind of chemical profile that we can have for this particular species. And apart from that, there are a few other species have also been used for these different medical purposes. Then actually I would like to highlight and emphasize there are certain, that there are many opportunities out there to do some research to know that these basic chemical setup and all might be useful, especially when we are going for some artificial chemical, that medicinal products or that kind of things, right? And this is what I mentioned you before, that this is one of the most popular drink in Sri Lanka. The Sonoracea cassiolaris. In local language, we call it as Kirala. And Kirala is commonly used in Sri Lanka to produce this particular drink. The taste is really good. It's like wood apple. Probably you have tasted wood apple. The taste is more or less like wood apple. And you know that because of this production, actually this is what we have valorized, especially when you're talking about this mangrove products. This is what we have valorized, especially the University of Ruhuna has the patent of producing this particular drink. And on the other hand, I would like to emphasize that because of this product, the most of the people on the coast, they are receiving good amount of money, good income for them, right? And when you talk about these ecological services, it has long been known that mangrove forest generally assist fisheries industry. I think Dr. Satyam has already explained that if you take a look on the root architecture of this species, this is a rhizophora species, it has a very peculiar type of root architecture. So because of that root architecture, you know that it can provide a lot of, you know, that breeding grounds for fishes, and also some, you know, that feeding grounds, and some of the fish come and hide inside from their predators. So likewise, it can help to increase the fish catch. And that is a very good news for the fisheries industry. And Sri Lanka, now we are receiving a lot of benefits because of this mangroves, especially for the fisheries. And when we talk about the coastal protections, very frankly mentioning, in Sri Lanka, we received, you know, that these mangroves received much attention after the tsunami that hit Southeast Asia in 2004. And I think the 75% of the country has badly been affected because of tsunami. And I invite you all to take a look on the picture that I have given on my left hand side. Now see that the railway track got totally distorted. Then you can understand the energy that wave had, right? But you know that surprisingly, it has been found that the people and the property uh, which were immediate back to mangroves were well protected from this energetic wave. It gives sort of, you know, that indication. It indicates that how strong these mangroves are. As I mean, because of due to that fact, we normally tend to call it as a high buffering belts. The mangroves are normally known as high buffering belts. So they can easily cope up with this energetic wave and mitigate or dissipate the energy that these particular waves have. So because of all these reasons, after 2004, we had a very genuine interest to increase mangrove cover, especially. Then I will talk about some of the restoration project that have been launched in Sri Lanka after 2004, and we can see the success of that as well. And with all these basic background, now I come to the concept, we call it as blue carbon. I think Dr. Satyam has given some basic information, but I would say that it's better to know few more details about what really blue carbon is meant, right? So the first thing is that, you know, that everyone knows that every ecosystem is capable of storing carbon. That is pretty common, not only to mangroves, but any ecosystem, they are very capable of doing this scenario. But when we talk about the carbon storage in salt marshes, seagrasses, and mangroves, we have given a specific term for that, and we call it as blue carbon. And when you're talking about this blue carbon, the total global coverage is about 51 million hectares, where the mangroves has given 30% contribution. It means that 1/3 of the total cover. Then you can really understand the real importance of mangroves. The other point is that when we're talking about these three different ecosystems, that you know that they are not well separated. So as biologists, you all know that these ecosystems are well interconnected. So therefore, in that sense, we know that if we conserve mangroves, that normally causes to protect seagrasses and salt marshes as well. But in Sri Lanka, we don't have a lot of salt marshes or the places, because we are having a very microtide, you know, that the tide is not so high. We call it as we are having microtidal system in Sri Lanka. So we are having a lot of mud flats. So therefore, mud flats, salt marshes, seagrasses, and mangroves in Sri Lanka collectively, they represent blue carbon contents. And if you go to the concept, this how carbon is stored or how carbon is getting accumulated inside soil. So you can find there are three major phases. The given image very clearly depicts that how it happens. Now see that the first one is photosynthesis. You know that through photosynthesis, what happens is carbon is basically captured by photosynthesis. Then later on, this carbon dioxide is again converted to carbon. Or in other words, we call it as a conversion of this carbon dioxide to biomass. At the same time, a considerable portion of this carbon is again added to the soil, sometimes through leaf shedding or with the growth of these different root systems, the underground root system that contributes to add some carbon to the soil. That process is called as carbon downwelling. It means that, in other words, we call it as carbon sinking. But at the same time, you can find that the counter reaction. So counter reactions means through respiration, some of these carbon, the trapped carbon, can easily be released to the environment, to the atmosphere, right? So this is how the system works, and this is how carbon stocks are getting accumulated inside the soil. This is the blue carbon concept, right? And how this blue carbon has become one of the major tools in climate change mitigation strategies, especially when you're talking about this mitigation, then I guess that you all are familiar with the Paris Declaration or Paris Agreement. In Paris Agreement, there is a very popular statement. It says that we need to achieve a balance between the anthropogenic emissions by its sources and the removal by sink. So the latter part directly represents the blue carbon concepts, or the carbon storage, or the carbon accumulation inside the soil. So at the same time, the scientists, they have introduced this blue carbon or the carbon storage or the soil carbon storage as an eco-friendly way, one of the eco-friendly ways that you can use to reduce the human carbon footprint. So in that respect, then now you can understand how it is important to know the blue carbon stocks in soil, to assess them and to conserve these blue carbon stocks. Then, as I told you before, that the mangrove forest, I think Satyam has clearly mentioned that, make a very good comparison that what is the average carbon stocks in mangrove soil. And in that respect, I would say that when you talk about the carbon stock, it is 4 to 8 times bigger than, or the larger than the terrestrial ecosystems, right? It is almost 4 to 8 times. And if you take some of the recent publication, they have claimed that the annual carbon stocks in mangroves is about 34.4 million per year. So it is a big, very big value and a very big figure. Then in Sri Lanka, we are having, I told you that we are having 1/3 of the coast is completely occupied by mangroves. So as Sri Lankans, we can get a lot of benefits conserving these mangroves. And if we can spread, if we can expand the mangrove cover using some of the degraded areas, I think that will give more benefits to Sri Lanka as well. But the most pathetic situation is the most of this carbon are stored in the topsoil layers. If you take a look on the spatial distribution of the carbon contents in soil, the most of the carbon are accumulated at the topsoil. So therefore, if you make even a small disturbance, even at a small scale, then you can clearly understand is most of these carbon tend to be released to the atmosphere very easily, very readily. So that is the reason why we need to keep all these things under well-conserved situation. So that's why we call it as, it is a very fragile ecosystem. That's the reason why we used to call it as so fragile. And this is one of the best example, shows you that how this accumulated carbon can be released to the environment. It says that from sink to source, with this kind of small, even with this, I mean, within this kind of small disturbance, it can cause to release more and more carbon to the atmosphere. Then I invite you all to take a look on the given value. Now see that according to the recent estimates, it says that the given number of is a megagram of carbon dioxide was released to the atmosphere due to the mangrove destruction. Right, it is a big value, and now you can understand how important this ecosystem in terms of greenhouse emissions, greenhouse gas emission. And this is actually this figure further explains you that how these three different phases are interconnected and how that normally causes to get more and more accumulated carbon inside the soil. And as I think, I was surprised to see that Dr. Satyam also used the same image. And the first one, it clearly shows you that what I have explained on the very first slide, that through the photosynthesis captured carbon dioxide, then carbon sequestration, then with the disturbance, how this carbon dioxide can easily be released to the environment or the atmosphere. So these phases are really clear, and you can get an idea about how these things are working. In Sri Lanka, when you talk about the major threats to carbon storages, in other words, the mangrove coverage, you know that the conversion of these mangroves to stream farm. In Sri Lanka, the stream farm has been so intense on the southern and western coast of Sri Lanka. So due to this conversion, we have lost a substantial amount of mangroves in Sri Lanka. That you can find that that I have given you the figure. It is about 1,000 to 3,000 mega carbon dioxide has been released to the environment due to this destruction. And this is also one of the most important facts that we need to take into account. So very recent research has clearly shown that the rate of loss, especially talking about the rate of loss in terms of different ecosystems, I mean forest, it has reduced to 0.18%, which is a very good thing to hear. But if you take a very in-depth analysis about these different losses, then most of these international climate policies have mainly focused for the terrestrial ecosystems, not for mangroves mainly. So therefore, there is an apparent gap, obvious gap between these terrestrial ecosystems and the conservation of mangroves. But at the same time, I would like to emphasize that there are certain programs like RED or RED Plus. This program have directly focused to conserve mangroves. I think you have already heard about this decentralization process and how community-based projects have led to have very successful management through RED and RED Plus. That's a very good thing. But at the same time, if you want to make a national policy to conserve mangroves especially, that we need to gather more and more data, gather more and more information about these mangrove ecosystems. That is the point. If we are well equipped or well armed with this data, then we can easily implement these different kind of policies. So that's the logic. Therefore, since I am talking more about these blue carbon stocks, then I would say that if we have accurate quantification or assessment about this blue carbon, that is really helpful in formulating or stipulating some of the policies aiming at conserving mangroves in Sri Lanka. Then I would like to give you some details, since there are some students might be interesting and might be amused to have this kind of different, that basic facts. So when you're talking about the total carbon stocks in mangroves, there are three major components. The first one is above ground carbon. The second one is below ground carbon. Biomass means that it directly represents plant roots, and the soil organic carbon. So these are the three major components that you can find that if you want to assess the total carbon in mangrove ecosystem. So this is very, don't be confused. This is one of the simplest equations that you can use in determining the estimation of the above ground biomass. Now see that the first equation, AGB equal to 0.251 and so on. So you know that if you know the wood density of that particular species, and if you know the diameter at your breast height, so now this DBH is replaced with a new index. We call it as D at 130 centimeters. So that is the updated one. But anyway, that if you keep that aside, that if you go ahead with the equation that I have given you, so you can easily calculate the above ground biomass, because you know that the wood density can easily be calculated using the Archimedes law, that if you know the weight of the small wood cube, and you can dip that in a small, you know, that water container, and you can calculate the water that is replaced by this cube, then you can easily calculate the wood density. Then if you know the wood density, if you know the diameter, then you can easily calculate the above ground biomass. So once you have this value, now see the second step, it is easier than the first one. If you can get the value, you can directly multiply by 0.48. This gives the total above ground carbon content. Now see that how easy it is. You don't need to have any kind of prior knowledge, that you don't need to know that all these different kind of algorithms, right? But just having these basic values, that you can easily calculate the carbon stocks. And if you go for the second one, how to estimate the below ground biomass, then here please take a look on the specific equipment or the instruments we can use to collect soil samples. We call it as soil corers. The size and length and all these dimensions basically are determined by the user. It depends on your objective. Now see that if you go to the equation that I have given you, BRC, the below ground root carbon, that I told you that there are two components, that below ground root carbon and soil carbon. Then if you know the below ground root carbon content, you can easily get the basic values. For instance, once you collect your soil samples, then once you wash all these soil columns, that you can sort out the basic, you know, that the root samples that you can find inside this soil core. Then once you get the oven dried weight of these fruits, that is the only value that you need to calculate the below ground carbon. Once you have the oven dried weight, you can multiply by 0.39 and it directly gives you the below ground root carbon. Now, when you are in that journey that you have already calculated below ground root carbon and above ground carbon stocks, now you can easily go for the soil carbon stocks. For the soil carbon stocks also, you can use specific cores. The size depends on your objective anyway. Then see that the equation that I have given you, it is pretty simple to be used. If you know the soil carbon content of the core and divided by the core area and multiply by 10 to the power minus 6 and again 10 to the power minus 8, 10 to the power 8. So you can get the mega carbon per hectare. So in this respect, you can easily get the soil carbon content using soil carbon analyzers. Now there are certain kind of sophisticated instruments you can use directly, soil carbon analyzer. But in absence of that, you can use a very traditional method. We call it as muffle furnace method, right? So using these simple techniques that you can easily get the soil carbon contents. Then once you know the soil carbon contents, and if you know the area of these cores, you can directly calculate the soil carbon stocks. Now see that you have above ground carbon, you have below ground carbon, you have the soil carbon. Then you can easily sum up these three types to get the total carbon storage. It is that simple. There is no rocket science behind this one, right? The very simple theories. So later on, that actually our research group, the university research group, we have decided to assess the blue carbon stocks along the Sri Lankan coastline using the described methodologies. Then for that, we have selected 5 different sites that I told you that we are having 3 different zones, the dry zone, intermediate and wet zone. So representing all these 3 zones that we have selected, D and B means the dry zone forest, and C in blue color, that is the intermediate one, and A also is situated in the intermediate zone, and E is from wet zone. So that I have given a normal general profile that you can find, that if you get the vegetation profile, this is how it looks. That is pretty common in Sri Lanka because we are having a better microtidal system. So therefore, the length is not too high in Sri Lanka. So therefore, the system is more or less like this. So once we select all these different mangrove systems along the Sri Lankan coastline representing different climate zones, then what we did was we just estimated or assessed the soil carbon and below ground carbon and the above ground carbon. And here the most interesting point here is, now see that soil carbon stocks. The soil carbon stocks, they sometimes went up to 1,600 megacarbon per hectare. So if we take the average carbon value in Sri Lanka or in some other countries like Brazil or related countries where you can find very rich mangroves, the average carbon value is about 1,500 or around. But in Rakau forest in Sri Lanka, the soil carbon along represents and goes up to 1,600. So now you can find that how it really works. It means the soil carbon storage as compared to above ground and below ground carbon. You can easily find that the soil carbon is playing the major role, the major contributor for blue carbon stocks. So therefore, but the bad news is that the people mostly disturb the soil profile. So therefore, there is a high possibility of getting all these carbon, that released to the environment very easily, even with a very little disturbance. Now you can see Rakava, Puttalam, Kalpitiya, and these different ecosystems, and you can find, that I would like to tell you that SW means the seaward side, MI means the middle part, and the LW means the landward part. So normally we took the zonation also into account, and you can find that more or less the soil carbon contribute largely if you take the total blue carbon content. And if you take the holistic picture of the carbon contents in Sri Lankan ecosystems, that you can find Rakava and Pambala, 1 and 3rd bars that represent the intermediate zone, and the Puttalam and Batiklo and 2nd and 4th one represent the dry zone, and Nigambo is a wet zone. So therefore, Rakava and Pambala, that the intermediate forests tend to accumulate more carbon as compared to the rest. So this is the key message that we got. And also please take a look on the above ground carbon, which is in white color, and below ground root carbon in black color, and soil carbon in gray color. Then you can find the different proportions and how soil carbon has significantly contributed for the blue carbon contents. So this type of, actually this was the first study in Sri Lanka that we have covered, that all these different ecosystems. And for you, I want to tell you that this blue carbon content not only depends on this climate, but there are some secondary factors that you need to take into account, that if you want to clarify or describe this blue carbon, it's like mangrove species composition. The composition does matter, it's mainly, and also the vegetation structure, and also the hydrology, disturbance, and all these kind of secondary factors should also be taken into account, that if you want to study blue carbon in these mangrove ecosystems. And this one also, I think Dr. Satyam has explained well, as compared to the rest of the ecosystems like temperate, boreal, and tropical upland countries that upland different forest, how, what is the carbon contents in mangroves, especially in Indo-Pacific area. It is more or less 4 or 5 times bigger or larger than the rest of the forest. And more importantly, when you're talking about the sustainable development goals, it has a very firm interaction between mangroves. So United Nations, they have set 17 different SDGs, and especially number 13 and number 14 are closely related with mangroves. Let's have a look on what is that. The first one is global goal 13, the climate action. The climate action directly represents that the greenhouse emissions, about the greenhouse gas emission, and now you can really understand why mangroves are really important, have become very popular in terms of this goal. When a country wants to achieve this goal, that they need to conserve mangroves at their maximum possible, because the reason is pretty clear. So if we conserve mangrove forest, we can have more carbon sequestration, not allowing these gases to get into the atmosphere, right? So in Sri Lanka, actually, I'm pretty happy to tell that now we have a national policy, especially targeting at mangrove conservation, that I will explain you in next few slides, what kind of actions that we have taken so far. Then the next point is that if you want to preserve these high blue carbon contents, what kind of options that we have? So logically, we have two options. The first one is conservation. The second one is restoration. The restoration is a subset of the major, so if we take the conservation, that is the major or the main concept, and restoration is a subset of it, right? So if you think about the conservation through legislation and policies in Sri Lanka, that we are having this number of policies. But very unfortunately, there are many loopholes through which that people can easily creep and get what they are expecting to have. So therefore, there is a big knowledge gap in Sri Lanka, that to do a research to see that what is the governance and policy status in mangrove conservation and management. Although we are having this number of policies, legislations, why still mangroves are being degraded? So that is one of the important research question to be addressed. And as I mentioned you before, in 2020, luckily, the cabinet ministers, they have put forward a new policy, the conservation policy. It's a sort of an agreement to conserve all the mangrove forests in Sri Lanka. I think in the world, we are the first country to claim that kind of, that policy, especially targeting at mangrove conservation. And these are the rest of the policies that covers mangrove in Sri Lanka. And as I told you before that, especially when you are talking about this mangrove conservation, that should be done through legislation. There is no other option. And also, if you get to know that some of the areas under intense threat, that what we can do is that we can claim them as protected areas. In Sri Lanka, we have a channel, that affiliated with the environmental ministry, that if we find or point out, that if we get to know that some of the areas are highly degrading, that we can just submit a report to the environmental ministry, so they can review our proposal and can go for this kind of actions. So they can take this kind of actions, that declaring them as protected areas or conserve areas or that kind of thing, and so on. And also the third point is one of the most important thing, that creating awareness programs. The best place to start up with is school, and again that we can go at university level and then the society level. And also the community-based conservation is prioritized. I think when you're talking about this RED and RED Plus and the Paris Declaration and all, they always encouraging us to go with community-based conservation. That is what Dr. Satyam has given a very good example, that if you give the key to the set of thieves, that your home is well secured. So in the same way that we can find that the community-based conservation. And the second one, I told you that the mangrove restoration. So actually, mangrove restoration should work as long as that you are adhering to the technical guidance, and as long as that you are coping up with the expertise and getting proper consultancy. The mangrove restoration is one of the best options that we can select. But in Sri Lanka, that I told you that after 2004, a lot of money has been pumped to Sri Lanka to go for this kind of restoration projects. But unfortunately, 85% of the projects have completely failed. But so on the western coast, what I have highlighted in blue color or the green color, so those are the only places where we could find the success greater than 50%. The rest of the areas have completely failed. So that is the bad story of this kind of action. So anyway, therefore, that I want to convey you this message that if you want to go for restoration or this kind of conservation, the best thing is to adhere to the technical guidance and to get the proper consultancy from the relevant institution. And so therefore, these are the things that I want to discuss with you. And when you talk about the take-home messages, especially when you're talking about these Sri Lankan mangroves, that I told you that we still receiving a lot of ecological services and benefits out of this forest. And we are having a very, low mangrove cover. It is about 8,000 hectares. And also that I told you the importance of blue carbon contents, and in Sri Lanka, some of the forest, they have a very high number of, that the places where we could find good carbon stocks. But unfortunately in Sri Lanka, so that Sri Lanka could not escape from the human pressure and therefore degrading at alarming rate. And our personal view, and we all believe that we need to have very strong legislations, policies to protect all these places, and we should close all the loopholes of these existing policies. And the last point I would like to tell is that the mangrove management is really, the working point, as well as it can be achieved if we are adhering to the technical guidance and all these basic rules and regulations. So these are the things I just want to share with you all. And finally, I would like to emphasize that if you want to see fish are flying over leaves, the mangroves is the only ecosystem that you can find it. And these are my contact details, that if you have any kind of confusion, or if you have any kind of problem to be solved, and if you want to get more details, don't hesitate to contact me. Feel free to contact me. And my major field of interest, I mean, my cup of tea is really plant stress physiology, because I did my PhD on stress physiology. But apart from that, I am working on mangrove restoration ecology, blue carbon in mangroves, and vegetation dynamics, that coupling with some modeling like mesofauna modeling, and also wood science and heavy metal pollution in coastal wetlands. So I guess this is what I want to share with you all. Thank you very much for everyone who has organized this nice forum and giving this chance to share my knowledge with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sunanda, for that complete detailed lecture on the blue carbon content. I think this also is a new concept to me. I heard about the carbon sequestration and all, but the blue carbon, no, not. And you have gone down to the level of the students and pointed out some of the areas that they can choose for taking up, considering for the project work or for the research work, and the importance of the mangroves to the Sri Lankan country. Thank you, sir, for giving the lecture. And we look forward to working with you from now on. Thank you. Now I request Dr. Vijay Nirmala, Head the Department of Zoology and Aquaculture, to give the concluding remarks.
A very good morning to one and all, good afternoon to one and all. Respected Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Mukherjee Jagannath Garu, Registrar of the University, Professor T. Ashok, Principal of UCST and convener of today's program, Dr. K. Ramaneshwari, my senior colleague, Dr. A. Matareddy, Dr. T. Kalyani, and other colleagues of Life Science Department, and also the affiliated colleges. Really, on behalf of the department, I congratulate Dr. Ramaneshwari Madam for organizing such a wonderful series of webinar. And this is really a very good initiation, we can say that start, because this is the first of its kind in department as well as in the university, where we are starting, Madam has planned to start a collaborative research on mangroves. The first speaker of today's program, our Honorable Vice Chancellor also has given a very good message for all of us, very motivating message, and also like Sir has really has so much of enthusiasm that he's, when Madam said it's 1 year, Sir was said, no, you should start today itself. This itself shows how much he is towards research and for the development of the university. Then today's first speaker, of course, very familiar to me, and Sir, I thank you on this platform for helping me for the project. I have submitted that, and I will very soon come with a positive result for you also. Dr. Satyanarayana Sir, who is from Andhra University, and never say no when anyone approaches for the help. Sir, today's lecture invited talk was talk on treasure the mangrove ecosystem for human and environmental safety. Really, your talk was very, very interesting, sir. We all forgot the time also. You have shared your research as well as you have given the clear cut about the biodiversity of flora, biodiversity, that's flora, fauna, and also chemical parameters. You did not leave anything regarding the mangroves. You have everything you have touched, sir, and especially you have focused on this the main important mangrove that is present in Andhra Pradesh, Koringa. And really, sir, we are very much happy that your talk, I think, given an ignorant person who can understand about mangroves, you have given a detailed about that, sir. Then the second speaker of today, Dr. Sunanda, sir, really your talk on blue carbon content in Sri Lanka mangrove. Sir, really, it was really a new concept. Of course, I had heard this from Dr. Satyanarayana sir, but you have focused like the availability where it is more, like the storage of the carbon above the soil, and also you have given it below the soil and in the soil. And really, you have given a very clear picture about that. And we could, and also we have discussed about the mangrove medicinal plants. So in future, as our convener said, we'll be in contact with both of you, sir, and we look forward for your collaborative research with our department. I thank the organizer, convener of the program, Dr. Ramaneshwari, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, one and all.
Shall I add one point, madam? This is why.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Satyanarayana Garu, for a very interesting talk, and Professor Sunanda from Sri Lanka. I'm very much thankful for both of you for elaborating more, where we are living near to Koringa, and I really to see some of the very interesting aspects in this particular subject. Whereas some overlap is there between my research work in this particular area, I want to share the particular thing. One, I'm working on aquaculture impact on groundwater quality in Godavari Delta, funded by National Hydrology Project, Government of India. So that is one project. Another project is submarine groundwater discharge. So there is a lot of fresh water which is going through the geological formation into the oceans. So we are trying to locate those potential zones and see if it is contaminated, how it is fragile for a coastal ecosystem. If it is a fresh water, we can explore for the drinking water purposes. This SGD submarine groundwater recharge project is funded by Ministry of Earth Science, Government of India. Primarily, I am responsible for entire Odisha state and partly Andhra Pradesh state. So because I could not completely listen, sir, because yesterday's rainfall at Kakinada, a lot of storm flood has happened. Collector called me, what happened yesterday, the rainfall and tides and all. I was a little bit busy during your presentation. I am very much interested to go through the organizers must have recorded these things. After seeing that, I will try to contact you. And this is a brief, details about my research in the coastal areas. Thank you very much, madam, for giving this opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for your gracious presence.
Yeah.
Actually, it is all really, definitely there is it's good to have overlapping. I mean, at least to share knowledge and help each other. That can emerge other topics to come up in the near future. I'm so sad that I'm very far from you, but luckily this technology has brought us very close. I think one day we'll be there that we work on Koringa again.
Sure.
And those 2 decades, the history, the information, even the floristic distribution information, even forest department, I doubt very much whether they have that closed 1 kilometer interval data.
Yeah.
Like the multidimensional speeches, presentations I made. So I don't think that strong data with densities, heights. So it's a golden opportunity for us to dig further in the 2 decades what happened and how much mangroves we lost. And definitely there will be a lot of students, enthusiastic students from Nalla University. I think we can tie up with you and with your organization and the university and external bodies with Sunanda and myself. So I think we can come up with a beautiful framework of the research. I'm very happy for it. And thank you so much for your valuable time and gracious presence. It boosts our
this
energy.
particular pandemic situation opened a new opportunities like webinars. This I like very much because this trend was not there. Physically people used to meet various conferences, limit, and somebody missed it. This has given as a wide options for interested people. Some people say that, okay, webinar people are not serious, but interested people definitely take it as an advantage.
They're learning a lot.
Personally, yes.
Exactly. And importantly, probably this trend might continue in the near future.
Definitely.
Instead of traveling, spending a lot of money,
I
wasting
used to
time.
attend various meetings for Delhi. For 1 day meet, I have to spend 3 days.
3 days traveling.
Always busy, traveling. This I liked it personally very.
I think this is the excellent opportunity. I mean, COVID is the best teacher. Somebody send me, teacher greetings. Happy Teachers Day. So the best teacher award goes to COVID-19 because it has brought up so much new wisdom to the society and to every group of people. So thanks, but anyway, we are suffering with that one. There are negative shades, but this is a good thing as well. There are some positive energy also we received out of this this pandemic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and looking forward.
Thank you, Professor Sunanda Garu also.
Thank you, Sunanda.
Okay, thank you very much
for respecting our invitation and be with us. And definitely we will be continuing our association journey. It's just a beginning, but we have a long way to go, and that step by step we will come up with in enforcement.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay Nirmala. I think now we have come to a close. Thank you, Satyaji Rao sir, for that, and definitely I would share the recording with you, and you can go ahead with all the programs that you design for the institute also. And from our side also, we extend our cooperation to conduct the studies because we have the human resource, that is the students. Any focus area, specific focus area you need, we can support you in those aspects. Thank you, sir, for that.
Industry is playing a very strong role, sir, now for the academicians and research. So being part of a university, I got to invite some industry people into my class, actually. It is the type, it is a compulsory now for us. So industry and government organizations have a wider range of expertise, so that we can easily collaborate and do excellent research.
In India, industries are coming more from IT sector. Actually, industries come from basic sciences, that could create a wonders. Yeah, that is the state of art,
Even the information technology is really been well used for mangrove studies, the 3D mappings. Even somebody used iPhone to go for the 3D mapping of the mangrove vegetation.
Yes.
It's so nice. It's everybody, and then somebody fish movements, during the high tide, how big fish can enter, and how so that they can identify the areas, potential areas for the fishermen. Okay, if you go to this area, this is the range of fishes you can get it, and these are the species. So such kind of information is like
today morning your topic only going on with the district administration of a collector and commissioner. They are talking about what is high tide and low tide. You'd explain me how the flood water is not going to the sea. So I was able to spend some time with the INCOI's website. I have explained him this is